Chapter 1627. Hearing the old turtle's words, Han Fei was stunned for a long time, and then he was amused. It turned out that old Yuan was still afraid. Now was the best time for him to ride on her coattails. The old Yuan was a smart tortoise, and he finally knew to seize the moment. In the old turtle's opinion, signing a master-servant contract with Han Fei was an extremely uncomfortable thing. However, after experiencing Xue Fan's calamity, Han Fei had once again proven his luck. If the Blood Sea Divine Wood didn't know Han Fei, if Han Fei didn't plant spies in the Blood Sea Divine Wood City, if Han Fei didn't get the Earth Vein Spring by chance, if the Divine Sun didn't sacrifice himself to protect Han Fei, if Han Fei didn't have the 9 death soul-splitting octopus. All the ifs were the fundamental reasons why Han Fei could survive this heavenly tribulation. That pitiful Xue Fan could definitely be called a legend of an era. No matter how talented he was, his level of intelligence was well known even among the tens of thousands of races in the vast ocean. However, it was killed by Han Fei. Perhaps Xue Fan himself had also considered the backlash from the Blood Sea Divine Wood, but he didn't expect that Han Fei would affect his tribulation. Even if the Blood Sea Divine Wood would backfire, he believed that he could withstand it. In fact, the moment the Blood Sea Divine Wood exposed its divine soul was also the best time for him to devour it. However, Han Fei had mastered the Heavenly Awakening Divine Technique and was willing to sacrifice 10,000 years of his life to purify the Divine Prince. This directly caused Xue Fan's parasitism to fail. He could only avoid the Heavenly Awakening Divine Art. In fact, from this matter, it could be seen that the apocalyptic Great Tao was stronger than the parasitic Great Tao. At the very least, it was stronger than the parasitic Great Tao that Xue Fan could grasp. At this moment, Han Fei chuckled. Old Yuan, you should have done this a long time ago. A master-servant contract isn't shameful. I won't really treat you like an old servant. In the future, I might even be able to find your body. If I become an emperor or a god one day, you won't be able to profit too much. The old turtle was speechless. Stop dreaming. Since I've already made up my mind, let's sign the contract. You've already used up everything you can use to temper your body. In this territory, you've already reached the limit of body refinement. It will be very difficult for you to improve it. What you need now is a truly powerful body refining technique. Han Fei looked at his body that was cracked like tempered glass. He took a deep breath and said, "My body refining technique? Isn't that enough?" The old turtle snorted. 2 heavenly tribulations have tempered your bones to the limit of what a venerable can bear. But you can still become stronger. This means that your indestructible golden body, in a sense. You are still far from your limit. Of course, your bones can continue to strengthen. But his body couldn't take it anymore. As you transcend the tribulation yourself, this problem will only become more and more serious. Do you want to become a king yourself? His flesh and blood completely disappeared. Only bones left? Han Fei asked, "My physique is so strong that I'll only be a skeleton after the tribulation? What about the others?" The old turtle, his physique isn't strong, but his coordination is high. Although your physique is strong, it is not coordinated. Moreover, are you going to walk the path that isn't the extreme like most normal kings? Han Fei shook his head. He narrowed his eyes and said, "Then how do I get a good body refining technique?" The old turtle said, "It's time for you to leave this place." Was the Waterwood Sky and the Yin-Yang Sky a bigger cage? Apart from the 3 kings, there's basically nothing else that can help you improve. I may have a body refining technique, but is that the technique of my turtle clan? You can't use it. You need to go to the 36 profound heavens and find an even stronger body tempering technique. Moreover, from now on, you need all your power. They're all used to temper the body. Han Fei was shocked. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Before I leave, I still have something to do. All contracts were a type of binding force that was based on the rules of the Great Tao. It was said that in ancient times, many things could be bound by contracts, just like borrowing money from others and asking the heavens to guarantee it. If that person borrowed money and did not return it, God would send a bolt of lightning down and strike that person to death. This was the binding power of the contract. There was no difference in the way the master-servant contract was signed. It was just that it was more restrictive on the servant. In other words, the old tortoise had its own independent thoughts and behaviors, but it could not bite back or attack its master. It could not bear grudges or push its master into danger. If the master died, the servant would die. The servant died, but the master was fine. That was all there was to the contract. In fact, if Han Fei and the old tortoise only regarded the contract as a bond of cooperation, just like a paper contract, the old tortoise would accept it. From the beginning, what the old tortoise couldn't accept the most was that he, a dignified emperor, had become someone else's servant. If the old tortoise had met a character like DK at the beginning, as long as DK asked, the old tortoise would have immediately agreed with a smile. But now, Han Fei's strength and luck had proved his extraordinariness. Just as Han Fei said, if he really became a king, the old tortoise would not be of much use to Han Fei. Once Han Fei entered a world as big as the 36 profound heavens, the things he saw would be different. After a while, when Han Fei felt that the contract had been completed and he could even control the old tortoise's life, at that moment, the demon purification pot suddenly disappeared from the depths of Han Fei's soul. After leaving Han Fei's soul, the demon purification pot returned to Han Fei's soul and seemed to be able to be protruded from between his eyebrows. Han Fei said in surprise, "Old Yuan, do you want to come out for a walk?" The old tortoise shook his head. "No, I'm just a soul. When you leave this place or return to the Yin-Yang heaven, release Gue Sanqing, and I can attach all of them to him." One day later. It had been about 3.5 months since the battle that day. During the month, Han Fei used his resurrection and the rest of the time to temper his body and forge the universe. At this moment, Han Fei's face, which was not handsome in the first place, was full of cracks. He didn't look good-looking at all. Han Fei grabbed a piece of blood sea divine wood, and spiritual fire burned in his hand. In less than 10 minutes, a bright red mask appeared in his hand. This red mask only had 2 holes for the eyes and a slightly bulging nose. Han Fei casually covered his face with the mask. To be honest, it was not that Han Fei couldn't transform, but that he happened to see the blood sea divine wood and wanted to use it. After all, it was quite cool to wear a mask. Besides, he'd better not be recognized when he went out this time. At this moment, Han Fei sighed slightly. It's a pity that the Divine Prince risked his life to save me. I can't return the favor. The old turtle said, actually, it may not have died. Huh? Han Fei's face changed slightly. What do you mean? The old turtle said, demonic plant creatures are just like your other teacher, the water fairy. Most demonic plant life forms would leave behind seeds after they died. Even if the seed is no longer itself after it grows again. They also want to pass on their heritage. This is the instinct of demonic plants. You can find it with the nautical instrument. Han Fei immediately raised his eyebrows. Is that so? Were these demonic plants so heaven-defying? Just now, when the old turtle was halfway through his words, Han Fei's eyes lit up. At this time, the nautical instrument had appeared in his hand and was spinning. As long as it was spinning, it meant that there was hope. The old turtle said, you can also look for Xue Fan. After the final terrifying explosion, the remains of Xue Fan's big Hong Ho could no longer be found. The trunk and branches of the Divine Prince's blood sea divine wood were all crushed, and some may have become treasures for others. Only the part from the bottom of the sea to the surface of the sea was left, which was badly damaged. But even so, Han Fei still couldn't let go of Forge the Universe. The body of the blood sea divine wood was theoretically comparable to the cloud sea divine wood. It was just that the Divine Prince didn't develop it that way. Finally, Han Fei drilled into a tree about 800 meters from the bottom of the sea and came to a weird dark space. This is... Han Fei couldn't help but wonder, inside the Divine Prince's body, a weird space collapsed. There was no power at all, but he couldn't detect it. The old turtle said, his origin sea. With a thought, Han Fei stretched out his hand and disappeared into the tree. When Han Fei returned to the 100,000 mountains, he couldn't help but sigh. It turned out that the entrance to the origin sea looked like this. It had collapsed like this. Han Fei's perception scanned and saw at a glance the place where he came out last time, the place where he used to cultivate. On the top of the mountain, there was a red twig. Who? Han Fei heaved a sigh of relief and said lightly, it seems that the Divine Prince still has a backup plan. However, he is not afraid that I can't find it. The old turtle nodded. At least, it's better to stay in his origin sea than to stay outside. If he's careless and gets parasitized again, he will be completely destroyed. With a swish, Han Fei appeared on the top of the mountain, carefully dug out the little tree, and put it into the sea-quelling painting. The reason why he put it into the sea-quelling painting instead of forge the universe was that this little tree couldn't enter at all. Han Fei felt great resistance. Different from when he took the water fairy with him, Han Fei wasn't sure if the divinity of the Divine Prince had been completely burned out. Anyway, the cost of putting it into forge the universe was too high for Han Fei to bear. After finding the Divine Prince, Han Fei took a look at the vast land of the 100,000 mountains, which was the Divine Prince's origin sea, and said, Old Yuan, such a large space has been buried. The old turtle said, do you want to take it away? Han Fei asked, can I take it away? The old turtle pondered for a moment and said, no. Han Fei was speechless. Doesn't that mean you didn't say anything? The old turtle said, now that the Divine Prince has just died, his soul has already been destroyed, but his body is not completely dead. This origin sea will slowly absorb the remaining power of the body. In the end, when there is no power to use, he will reappear in the world. Han Fei frowned. How long will it take? The old turtle said, I'm not sure. It depends on the time when the origin sea collapses. But no matter how fast it is, it's impossible to recover without hundreds of years. Han Fei asked, after a strong master dies, the origin sea is useless? The old turtle said, the power of the origin sea will return to heaven and earth. How can it be useless when heaven and earth give back to the thousands of races in the vast sea? Han Fei curled his lips. Because of the conservation of energy, after finding the remains of the Divine Prince, Han Fei searched his origin sea again. Making sure there were no remains of Xue Fan, he cut open the void and went to the outside world. When he used the navigator for the third time, Han Fei still found the remains of Xue Fan. More than 50 kilometers underground, in a very remote broken sand, there was a small vine about an inch long, with a red seed under it. Han Fei didn't hesitate to crush it, leaving nothing behind. Perhaps, this red seed would regenerate into a different big red trunk. However, he couldn't be soft-hearted at this time. Otherwise, if he gave Xue Fan another opportunity in a few years, he might be able to turn the world upside down. To be honest, Han Fei didn't think Xue Fan's talent was good, at least not as good as his. But could talent represent everything? In terms of strategy, even those who were a few levels more talented than Xue Fan would be defeated by him. Wasn't the Divine Prince the son of God? In terms of talent, was the Divine Prince worse than Xue Fan? Han Fei didn't believe it. But even the Divine Prince had fallen into Xue Fan's trap. It could be seen that the path of cultivation was not all about talent. At this moment, confirming Xue Fan's death, Han Fei felt much more at ease. Looking around, Han Fei smiled and said, Old Yuan, it's time for us to go out. Chapter 1628. When Han Fei stood outside of the Blood Sea Divine Wood, he saw devastation as far as his eyes could see. Even in places close to the trunk of the Blood Sea Divine Wood, he often saw void cracks. Up in the sky, in all directions, the spatial cracks gradually formed a void storm. It was not a good place to stay. If one was careless, he would fall into an eternal black hole of nothingness. Generally speaking, if one was trapped there, he would most likely be strangled. If he was lucky enough to survive, where could he go? Or would he be lost in the darkness forever? No one knew about this. Seeing the void storm, the old turtle suddenly said, "If you are willing to cultivate here for 10 years and temper your body at the edge of the void storm, you may be able to increase your physical strength by 10%. Han Fei's mouth twitched. No. If I want my body to be completely compatible with the indestructible golden body, I need to be at least 50% stronger. The old turtle nodded. 60%. Han Fei said, so, 10% is too little and too slow. I can also use the heavenly lightning to temper myself, which will make my body stronger by more than 10%. What Han Fei was talking about was deducing the 7th level of the void fishing art. At this time, Han Fei had already felt the power of the heavenly tribulation. The 7th level of the void fishing art corresponded to the king level. Therefore, Han Fei was a little guilty and hadn't deduced it yet. Han Fei decided to wait until he reached the peak level of the Venerable Realm and was about to break through to the Half-King Realm. Or, he could deduce it after he mastered the indestructible tyrant body. It would be safer. The current indestructible tyrant body still needed a high degree of unity of bones, soul, and flesh. However, none of these methods were foolproof. Han Fei also knew a place that could help him temper his body, and the tempering effect might be fast and effective. That was the Thunder Prison. It was a pity that the Thunder Prison was a forbidden secret realm of the Baibei royal city. It was not impossible, or even difficult, to find an opportunity to go in. However, to open a forbidden secret realm? That would definitely attract a lot of attention. Therefore, Han Fei could only solve the main things after he went out and then find a way to enter the Thunder Prison. As for what the old turtle had said about leaving the Yin-Yang sky and the Waterwood sky, that wasn't the time. He didn't want to go out as a high-grade supremacy. The existence of Xue Fan and the White Armor Emperor made Han Fei see the horror of the strong. Xue Fan was a stubborn and evil cultivator. Perhaps there weren't that many of them. However, how could an ordinary king like the White Armor Emperor be in the 36 profound heavens? I'm afraid it won't be any less. A White Armor Emperor could withstand a heavenly tribulation for a short period of time. If he was caught by the White Armor Emperor, he would probably be blown up in just a breath's time. As for Zhao Xianglong, that was even more terrifying. That guy. How many dragons had he slaughtered? Living to this day and not dead, alone? Perhaps he had fought across billions of miles of the vast ocean. How many of such experts were there out there? Han Fei clearly remembered that Zhao Xianglong had been looking for people everywhere. Although no one else helped him, what about the people he found? Were they all weaker than him? Not necessarily. Ask for help. The strong wouldn't go to the extent of asking the weak for help. So, the 36 mysterious heavens? Although Han Fei hadn't visited them one by one yet. But Han Fei knew that there must be many strong people. All of a sudden, Han Fei thought, it seems that only the big families of the Yin-Yang heaven? They're easier to bully. Of course, even though Han Fei had a lot of thoughts in his mind, he still sat cross-legged here. He stepped on the spirit gathering array, and countless spirit gathering arrays gathered into a large spirit gathering array. A massive amount of spiritual energy swarmed in. He needed to wait for a day for the nautical panorama to recover. In this sudden battle, those who suffered the most were the Millennium Snappers in the entire Blood Sea Divinewood City. On that day, tens of millions of Millennium Snappers were stripped of their vitality and died inexplicably. They didn't even know why. Many Millennium Snappers were dumbfounded. They didn't even know why. They didn't even have time to cry. For them, all of this was the end of the world. The big red trunk was collapsing, the earth veins were collapsing, the Blood Sea Divinewood was breaking, and their companions were dying. The only thing they could do was to escape. In fact, these Millennium Snappers didn't know that they were actually lucky. Those unlucky ones had already been sucked to death by Xue Fan. It was just that Xue Fan didn't have time to suck the others to death. But in any case, the Blood Demon was the common enemy of the Cloud Sea Divine Tree and the White Shell Royal City. Now that their god had fallen, everyone would give him a push when he was down. In the past 3 months, Han Fei didn't feel anything. But in fact, as many as 13 venerable realm powerhouses had died. In the past 3 months, Yang Ruoyun had the most complicated mood. Once, she changed from a human to a millennium snapper, but that was because she didn't want to be a human anymore. She felt that it was extremely difficult for her to stand out in the vast sea of people and become a strong master. But she happened to have the opportunity to become a strong master, and it was indeed difficult for ordinary people to refuse. But now, Yang Ruoyun wasn't sure. She knew that all these disasters were probably related to Han Fei. She thought that Han Fei would fulfill his promise. Because Han Fei not only gave her the top cultivation method of sea demons but also signed a Tao oath with her. After this, he would never hurt her again. After all, Han Fei was so strong now. There was no need for him to make trouble for her, right? But Yang Ruoyun didn't know that what Han Fei was going to do was so big that he directly destroyed the Blood Sea Divine Wood City. At this moment, billions of years Snapper was being besieged, and the battlefront covered millions of kilometers. The Blood Sea Divine Wood City had become a paradise for adventurers in the entire Shuemu heaven. Neither the White Armor Emperor nor Mu Wuhua were prepared to accept the Blood Demon. After all, Xue Fan's performance was too strange. They all knew that these blood demons were actually Xue Fan's blood bank. If they really accepted them, who would they cry to if something went wrong? Therefore, they let their subordinates eliminate them. This was the result of following the evil king. At this time, Yang Ruoyun was fleeing with a few hundred people. There were 2 waves of people chasing her, one was the sea demons, and the other was the Zerg clan. Ruoyun, I'm afraid we can't escape. You have a lot of resources on you. Run away quickly. Don't think about revenge in the future. The Blood Sea Divine Wood City is finished. Someone sighed. Unfortunately, we were supposed to be humans. Someone turned around. I want to fight like a human and die. I hope I can be a human again in my next life. Yang Ruoyun pursed her lips and watched the people around her gradually decrease. Yang Ruoyun gritted her teeth and cried, desperately begging to live. In the end, when a bald head blocked her way, Yang Ruoyun knew that she was finished. Yang Ruoyun took a deep breath. Zhang Xiaotian, I want to know why you are chasing me. Zhang Xiaotian looked at Yang Ruoyun indifferently and said expressionlessly, hand over the resources. Yang Ruoyun said, I don't know what you are talking about. If I had resources, I would have gone to the Venerable One long ago. Zhang Xiaotian shook his head slightly. Then die. Wait a minute, the desire to survive made Yang Ruoyun use her instincts. She said, wait a minute, I don't have them with me. I'll take you to get them. However, the next second, Zhang Xiaotian appeared in front of Yang Ruoyun and pierced her chest with a spear in his hand. Zhang Xiaotian smiled and said, you know what? I can actually feel your mental fluctuations. You're lying to me. Then, Zhang Xiaotian pierced Yang Ruoyun's jaw with his fingers and took out a sun moon shell that was dripping with blood. At this moment, Yang Ruoyun hadn't died yet, but Zhang Xiaotian, who was half a venerable, had already shattered her heart. Also, Zhang Xiaotian was absorbing Yang Ruoyun's power. Zhang Xiaotian said, little girl, I've lived for more than 6,000 years. You can't fool me with your petty tricks. Rest in peace and die. In this vast ocean, the rise and fall of a race happens every day. It's just that your race is a little bit bigger. A moment later, after Zhang Xiaotian absorbed the last bit of power, he was about to tear apart the void and leave this place. Suddenly, he whipped his head around and saw a man wearing a red mask, standing behind him at some point in time. At that moment, Zhang Xiaotian felt a chill run down his spine, and a breath of cold air shot up to his head. Who are you? He said in a low voice, I'm someone you can't beat. Zhang Xiaotian. The void shattered, and Zhang Xiaotian made a prompt decision. He wanted to move the surrounding void so that he could fight for a chance to escape. But Han Fei didn't move at all. A pressure descended and crushed Zhang Xiaotian's body into pieces. Zhang Xiaotian turned into a giant octopus and looked at Han Fei in shock. You're a half-king. Han Fei blinked and looked at him. He then waved his hand, and a space crack turned into a knife aura. After one slash, a piece of flesh that was splashed out was crushed. Ah! When the knife approached, the piece of flesh surged and tried to burn its blood to escape. Unfortunately, it was just his wishful thinking. After Zhang Xiaotian died, Han Fei said casually, I'm your grandpa. The old turtle was lost for words. Didn't you fight her before? Look at you. You're not a good person at all. Han Fei grabbed the Sun Moon shell and looked at Zhang Xiaotian's Sun Moon shell. Humph, a pile of garbage. Han Fei stomped, and a cave appeared, and Yang Ruoyan's body fell into it. Han Fei threw the 2 Sun Moon shells into the cave and said casually, I didn't kill you. But I'm not obliged to save you, am I? If you were still a human, I would consider it. Unfortunately. You're not. Chapter 1629. With the nautical panorama, as long as there was a slight weakness in the void storm, Han Fei could crawl out. After coming out, Han Fei wanted to leave directly. However, on second thought, the destruction of the Blood Sea Divine Wood City should be accompanied by the extinction of the Millennium Snappers. This was what Han Fei had thought of before. Hence, when he found the Ichthyosaur King and Yang Ruoyan, their fates were already sealed. At this moment, he came over to take a look out of curiosity. Han Fei had expected Yang Ruoyan's death. She had always been playing petty tricks, but they were useless against an old monster like Zhang Xiaotian. This was the downside of being smart. In the end, experts still relied on strength. Of course, it would be even better if he had a brain. The old turtle said, there are a lot of resources in the sun and moon shell, don't you want them? Han Fei's face sank. Who are you looking down on? Do you think I will only rob these little things? The Zhang family of the Thousand-Star City is my first choice. Han Fei didn't try to sneak into the Baibei Royal City as soon as he came out. Why not go to the Yinyang Sky first? Rather than going in now and taking the risk, why not go there first? Wiping out the aristocratic families first was the top priority. And to go to the Yinyang Sky, he could only go through the Cloud Sea God Tree. However, before he left, he looked for the Fish Dragon King with the nautical panorama. This brother of mine, from his arrogance when he first appeared, to his current wanderings and compromises, could actually become a great talent. However, the nautical panorama did not rotate. This meant that this guy might already be dead. Han Fei shrugged and said indifferently, I wanted to send you off for the last time, but unfortunately, half a day later, at the top of the Wudong tree in the Sea of Flames. Han Fei arrived quietly and smiled at a little bald head that was absorbing the heavenly fire at the top of a tree. Golden Crow, it's been a long time. Buzz. At this moment, the Golden Crow's strength was no longer the same as before. When he first met the Golden Crow, it was still in its infancy and was very weak. Now, it seemed that in just a few short years, he had reached the peak of law enforcement. Han Fei couldn't help but click his tongue at this speed. Although he was fast back then, he wasn't as fast as the Golden Crow. He had reached the peak of law enforcer just by sitting here and cultivating. The flames on the Golden Crow flickered, and it looked at Han Fei in shock. Who are you? How did you get here? Teacher, teacher. Han Fei didn't look like a good person at all. Wearing a red mask. He pretended to be a big shot. Moreover, could Han Fei bypass the senses of the venerables without anyone noticing? To appear at the top of the cinnabar tree. There were only a handful of people in the entire Cloud Sea Divine Tree who possessed such strength. The Golden Crow let out a cry, and the 3 insect queens arrived. May I know who you are? Sir, have you come to my Cloud Sea God Tree? What do you want? Chirp chirp chirp, the other queen insect was about to summon someone. The void trembled, and an elegant rose-red robe appeared. The Life Queen slowly walked out of the void. He looked at Han Fei. The 3 insect queens heaved a sigh of relief when they saw the Queen of Life. Her Majesty the Queen was here. She didn't care who this person was. Even the White Armor Emperor. None of them were good to him. The Life Queen was a little surprised. She nodded slightly at the 3 insect queens and said, "All of you, go. I'll handle this." The 3 insect queens were surprised. Did Her Majesty personally come to deal with this person? Could this person be a king? That's not right. The aura of his realm? Obviously, he is an advanced venerable. But the 3 of them didn't ask much. Her Majesty the Queen ordered them to leave. At this moment, in the void, Bai Suzhen also came over. Bai Suzhen was very calm when she saw Han Fei. She wasn't surprised by Han Fei's weird appearance. Han Fei looked at Bai Suzhen and said in surprise, "Semi-venerable. She's growing quite fast. Is there any problem?" The Life Queen nodded. "No problem. Her cultivation speed should be this fast." Bai Suzhen was surprised to see that Han Fei was asking her. "Who are you?" Han Fei reached out and took off his mask, revealing a face full of cracks, like a porcelain full of cracks. "Hiss, Han Fei." The Golden Crow looked at Han Fei in shock. "What happened to you?" Bai Suzhen also looked at Han Fei in surprise. "Your face." "No, your body, is there something wrong with it?" Only then did Bai Suzhen notice that Han Fei's hands were also full of cracks. Obviously, Han Fei was seriously injured. The Life Queen was silent for a long time. "I didn't expect that you didn't die in that situation." Han Fei smiled. "Maybe it's because I'm lucky. The others have all died. I'm here to borrow the passageway." The Life Queen asked curiously, "Then how did you get here? Is there another passage in the Yin Yang heaven that leads here?" Han Fei shook his head. "I came through the wall of death." The Life Queen narrowed her eyes and said to Bai Suzhen, "Suzhen, take the Golden Crow back to the palace." The Golden Crow didn't want to leave yet. He immediately said, "Master, Han Fei and I still have something to talk about." The Life Queen glanced at the Golden Crow. "It won't be too late to talk to him when you become a venerable." Bai Suzhen took a deep look at Han Fei, pulled the Golden Crow up, and entered the void passage they came from. After the 2 of them left, the Life Queen said, "I tried to enter the wall of death but found that I couldn't break it at all." "Can you break it?" Han Fei said, "It's best if you're a beginner venerable or a half venerable. The stronger you are, the harder it is to enter." The Life Queen said, "Many people from the Cloud Sea Divine Tree have entered, but none of them have come out." "You mean you came directly from the Yin Yang heaven?" Han Fei smiled and said, "You can say that, but the Yin Yang heaven isn't directly connected to the Waterwood heaven." Inside the wall of death was a gigantic cage. This cage seals the Yin Yang heaven and the Waterwood heaven. In the cage, venerables are everywhere, and explorers are as numerous as an army of insects. All the explorers from the Cloud Sea Divine Tree and the White Shell Kingdom combined are less than a 10,000th of the people in the cage. Huh? Han Fei clearly saw the Life Queen's face tremble. She seemed to be thinking, how is that possible? However, knowing Han Fei's identity, the Life Queen knew that Han Fei had no reason to lie to her. The Life Queen asked, "Are there kings there?" Han Fei shook his head and said, "There's a crazy dragon subduing palace master, extremely powerful, sealed by an array. Also, there are a few fake kings inside, about 3 times as strong as a half-king, or even stronger." Dragon subduing palace master. The Life Queen was obviously stunned by Han Fei. To be honest, she wasn't familiar with the 36 mysterious heavens. When she inherited the Waterwood heaven, although she also inherited some knowledge, it was only a simple introduction to the 36 mysterious heavens. Seeing that Han Fei said it so easily, it was obvious that he had already met them. The Life Queen asked, "Is he an enemy or a friend?" Han Fei said, "He's a lunatic now, and it's impossible to determine whether he's an enemy or a friend. His story is quite complicated. If I'm lucky enough to meet him in the future, as long as I don't mention the dragon race to him, it shouldn't be a problem. Dragon race? The Life Queen was a little confused. What the hell did Han Fei know? How did a member of the dragon clan appear? Was Han Fei talking about the legendary dragons? Han Fei said, I'm just telling you that the cage seal can't be broken now. No matter how you fight with the White Armor Emperor in the future, don't break the cage seal. The Life Queen said lightly, that seal shouldn't be broken, right? It seems to have surpassed the power of a king. Han Fei shook his head and said, there's something wrong with it now. It may only take a few years, decades, or hundreds of years. The further the cage seal is, the more problems there will be. Some cracks may even appear, and some strange explorer experts may come out in advance. People from the Cloud Sea Divine Tree must not enter. The Life Queen nodded. Okay, I got it. Your body. Han Fei said, are there any treasures like spiritual fruits that can strengthen the body? The Life Queen nodded. Yes, there are some. How about the immeasurable fruit? Han Fei looked at the Life Queen for a moment and said leisurely, then forget it. The Life Queen, this was the first time she had been despised by someone. The immeasurable fruit. Everyone else was fighting for something that they couldn't even imagine, and you actually despised it? The Life Queen said, can you tell me, what's the specific situation? My spring water may be able to cure it. Han Fei's eyes lit up. My indestructible golden body is so strong that my flesh and blood are not strong enough. I need to temper my body and make them reach a balance. The Life Queen didn't feel good. Thinking of Han Fei and Xue Fan's performance in the heavenly tribulation that day. Forget it, I can't measure it from a human's point of view. The Life Queen said, then you'd better look for it. Maybe there's an opportunity in the Yin Yang Heaven. I think you should go to the Yin Yang Heaven first. Han Fei's expression changed slightly. What's wrong with the Yin Yang Heaven? The Life Queen said, Jing, sent a message saying that a king has been born on your side. Pooh, Han Fei spat out a mouthful of blood. What? Han Fei was dumbfounded. That's impossible. King. Which one? The Life Queen said, now that I think about it, maybe it's the fake king you mentioned. Because that person hunted Jing, but Jing, escaped. Phew. Han Fei immediately patted his chest. Junior sister, finish what you're saying next time. You're really scary like this. However, as soon as Han Fei said that, he heard the Life Queen say in a playful voice, what did you call me? Han Fei said. Well, I said I have to go back. The fake king is causing trouble, and the Yin Yang Heaven needs me now. Chapter 1630. Han Fei was about to go back gloomily, thinking to himself, when I become a king, I'll call you junior sister every day, 300 times a day. As for now, although he was already very powerful, the gap between him and the Life Queen was still not small. The Life Queen didn't stop him. She had seen Han Fei's potential. After all, he was worthy of Han Guanshu's schemes back then, and he was able to pass through the Wall of Death, participate in the monarch battle as a venerable, and survive the monarch tribulation. Han Fei was truly the first person the Life Queen had ever seen. In terms of talent, Han Fei was much better than him. Of course, Han Fei was indeed eager to go back. When he was imprisoned, the second thing he asked Peaceful to do for him was to look after the Scattered Stars Island. She didn't need to participate in the battle, she just needed to look after them. But now, even Serenity was being hunted. This meant that the so-called king had already begun to move against his own territory. What was his own territory? Han Fei felt that except for the Thousand-Star City, the entire Yin Yang Heaven was now his territory. And Han Fei was even more certain that it was impossible for the Yin Yang Heaven to become a king. That place didn't have what it took to become a king. Announcing to the public that he had become a king? It was definitely fake. Just as the Life Queen had guessed, even if someone announced that they had become a king, they would at most be a fake king. And this person Was he from the Truman Show? Or the Chow family? It was probably old Monster Chu from the Chu sect. If they were from the Chow clan, they wouldn't have gone to such extremes. After all, his relationship with the Chow clan was not bad, and there had never been any deep hatred between them. So, hunting Serenity? There was no need for that. When passing through the channel between the two worlds, Han Fei greeted the leafless tree and the Qianmu tree. They were actually a little confused and thought to themselves, how did you get here without using the passage? Han Fei said a few words casually and didn't talk much with them. Yin Yang Heaven. The sea waves were boundless, and the sea breeze carried a bit of the smell of the sea. The sun shone on the surface of the sea, causing the waves to sparkle like golden scales emerging from the sea. Han Fei casually grabbed the venerable token. The place where he came from was not far from the Scattered Stars Island. Serenity should be able to be felt. Han Fei was not afraid of the so-called fake king. Now, he no longer had to fear anyone in Yin Yang Heaven. Even if he had to go through another king's tribulation. Can I be sure that before I die? That so-called false king had already fallen. So, Han Fei hung the venerable token casually on his waist, stepped into the void, and flew towards the Scattered Stars Island. After a while. On the Scattered Stars Island, Han Fei hadn't scanned it yet. The old turtle said, there are enemies at the peak of the Venerable One. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. Huh? Was he now a peak stage venerable? Didn't they all want money? Even the Scattered Stars Island can be equipped with peak-level venerable experts. The old turtle said, you should know this person, right? It was the peak stage venerable from the Chu sect. Judging from his aura, it seemed a little unstable. Was he about to break through to the peak of the venerable realm? He might only be a step away from becoming a demi-monarch. Han Fei curled his lips. King Chu Men. Interesting. But even if he really becomes a half-king, what can he do? Han Fei looked disdainful. He had already killed a peak venerable when he was in the human race's immortal city. Now, his strength was more than a level higher than before. In terms of pure strength, he had already caught up with or even surpassed a half-king powerhouse. Han Fei didn't hide his perception and looked at the Thug Academy immediately. Of course, at this time, the Thug Academy was already empty and grass was growing inside. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. It seemed that the fate of the Thug Academy had never been good. They were all kinds of heavenly talents, but they had to hide all day. Han Fei wasn't afraid that the people of the Thug Academy would be killed or captured by the Chu sect. If old Monster Chu really became a king, with peaceful means, he would definitely protect the people of the Thug Academy and leave as soon as possible. Even if Peaceful couldn't, old Han could. He had a good relationship with Immortal Li, so he definitely wouldn't let anything happen to the students of the Thug Academy. Figuring that out, Han Fei looked at his statue again. However, when he looked, Han Fei's face turned green. Where was my statue? No wonder I felt that the growth rate of my power of faith had slowed down in recent years. So, his statue was torn down by someone else? If it weren't for the hundreds of millions of people in the immortal city who were worshipping my statue, maybe I would have discovered that something was wrong with the Yin Yang Heaven. Han Fei said with a cold face, what a Chu sect. What a King Chu. Did I give them face? I've only been away for 4 years, and they even tore down my statue. I'm so angry. The old turtle said, why don't you bear it for a while? For example, go to the Thousand Star City and steal some resources. In this way, the battle on the Yin Yang Heaven can continue. Han Fei chuckled. Steal? No. Now, I'm going to eradicate the so-called big families once and for all. I am the king of the Yin Yang Heaven. All the land in the world belongs to me. No matter where the resources are, they are mine. After all, the Yin Yang Heaven is only so big. Of course, Han Fei didn't go to find trouble immediately. Why would he look for trouble when he didn't know anything? That was unwise. The Transverse Mountain. Xuexinqi was fishing in the deep abyss. God knew what he was fishing for. Maybe he was just fishing for loneliness. As early as when King Chu came to the Scattered Stars Island, he had been imprisoned here. He was sure that King Chu didn't dare to kill him. After all, he had ruled the Scattered Stars Island for a full 50 years, and too many people knew him. After Han Fei left, many things were directly handed over to him to deal with. Therefore, in the eyes of the public, Xuexinqi had never left their sight. Now that he was imprisoned, it was only temporary. Xuexinqi was sure that King Chu couldn't rule the Scattered Stars Island by force. So, he was happy to wait for King Chu to invite him out of seclusion to appease the public anger. Han Fei would come back and take back the Scattered Stars Island. Compared with the big families, after seeing how the Gate King dealt with the Scattered Stars Island, Xuexinqi knew that the big families were hopeless. They didn't know how to govern a free city at all. What they used was still the same old method of squeezing the people's blood and sweat with all their might. Yo! You're quite relaxed. But what are you fishing for? Han Fei's voice sounded. Xuexinqi was taken aback at first, but then his brows relaxed and he said lightly, "It doesn't matter what I'm fishing for. I'm just killing time." "When did you come back?" Han Fei replied, "Just now." Xuexinqi looked back at Han Fei, saw the mask on Han Fei's face, and couldn't help frowning. "You don't want to wear a mask in public, do you?" Han Fei shook his head. "Of course not. I just use it when it's necessary." With that, Han Fei took off the mask. He didn't mind being seen like this. At least Han Fei felt that this was only temporary. Seeing Han Fei's appearance, Xuexinqi exclaimed, "It seems that you haven't been living very well these years." Han Fei smiled faintly. "I've been living very well. So, I guess old Monster Chu has announced that he has become a king?" Xuexinqi nodded. "Yes, there's nothing to be surprised about. For a long time, in the eyes of some people, there are only a few people who are most likely to become kings. However, I'm a little confused. He shouldn't have become a king, right? If he really became a king, he should have done something big long ago." Han Fei shook his head. "Become a king? Hee hee. If I don't become a king, he won't become a king even if he lives until he dies." Xuexinqi nodded slightly. "Then I'm relieved. Wu, aren't you afraid that King Chu will find out that you came here? He is on the Scattered Stars Island now." Han Fei grinned. "Unless he is bored and scans this place with his perception, he won't be able to notice me." Xuexinqi raised his hand, put away the fishing rod, and looked at Han Fei seriously. "Your former teammate, Luo Xiaobai of the Luo family in the Thousand Star City, secretly sent me a message, saying that old Monster Chu's becoming a king may have something to do with the Thousand Star Proving Ground and asked me to inform you. Now that you know, what are you going to do?" The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. Instead of answering directly, he said with a smile, "Old Monster Chu just occupied the Scattered Stars Island and did nothing else? I think the 36 towns should be under his rule now, right?" Xuexinqi took a deep look at Han Fei. "At least, all your statues are gone." Han Fei's eyelids twitched a few times, and he took a deep breath. "How dare you?" Then Han Fei looked at the city lord's mansion. Han Fei stepped into the air and took out a small mirror in his hand. The next moment, with a thought from Han Fei, his face returned to normal. It was just the effect of the art of deception. The sky opened, and all the venerables on the Scattered Stars Island changed their faces slightly and looked up at the sky. Someone murmured, "The sky hanging mirror appeared. Han Fei is back." The star tortoise's head stuck out of the tortoise shell. "Is that guy finally back?" King Chu scanned with his perception and instantly disappeared from the city lord's mansion. The next moment, King Chu found himself reflected in the sky hanging mirror. Only then did he perceive that there was a person standing thousands of kilometers away. It was none other than Han Fei. King Chu looked at Han Fei in shock. You've actually reached the peak level of an advanced venerable. Han Fei looked at King Chu as if looking at a dead man. I heard that you tore down all my statues. King Chu sneered. Han Fei, even if you have become an advanced venerable, so what? No matter how strong you are just an advanced venerable. You can't do anything to me. And I have been waiting for you. Crack, a jade slip broke, and King Chu laughed. In 3 seconds, Ancestral Patriarch will be here. You can't escape. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. In 3 seconds, you will die. Chapter 1631. After experiencing the prison cage, Han Fei had basically no feelings for these so-called strong masters of the Yin-Yang heaven. Perhaps this King Chu was very strong in his eyes before, and he couldn't be compared to him at that time. But now, he had crossed 2 realms and was much stronger than before. Why would he be afraid of him? The moment the sky screen had appeared, King Chu's death had already been decided. Yes, Han Fei was very sure of this. In the void, the two stepped into a void at the same time. King Chu roared, an ice dragon attached to his body, and an ultra-quality divine sword in his hand cut through the sky. The blade of the sword was thousands of meters long, and it was powerful enough to split the sky. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly, and he took a step forward, and the space was shortened. At that moment, Han Fei stretched out his hand and grabbed at the void, and a void blade was pulled out by Han Fei. Kacha! King Chu's huge sword shadow collapsed in an instant. And at this moment, Han Fei had already come in front of King Chu. King Chu still wanted to continue, but Han Fei said softly, "There's a restrictive spell here." King Chu's face changed drastically, because Han Fei's knife had already slashed in front of him. Hu! Chu Men King roared, ice-sealing divine armor. Crystal clear ice armor appeared on King Chu's body, and the armor flickered with spiritual light. Even though King Chu was very confident in himself, he couldn't help but be shocked. He had never thought that he would be forced to the point where he had no choice but to defend himself in the early stages of the confrontation. However, Chu Menwang did not panic at all. After all, Han Fei was only a peak-level advanced venerable. Even if Han Fei's growth was terrifying, he was only a peak-level advanced venerable. He couldn't be stronger than him, right? However, when he was shrouded by Han Fei's knife light within 100 meters, he was shocked to find that the surrounding space seemed to be separated. Puff! Crack! Chu Menwang didn't have time to think about it. He saw his body suddenly split into pieces. The so-called ice-sealing divine armor had no effect at all. At this moment, Han Fei took a step forward and approached King Chu. Hu! The dragon roared, and King Chu felt his soul tremble. His body was separated, and only his head was left. Blood spurted from his 7 apertures. Han Fei pressed on Chu Menwang's head with one hand, and the void lines instantly wrapped around all of Chu Menwang's limbs. Explode! Boom! Even in the void. What kind of terrifying explosive force was this? They pierced through the void. Spatial rifts can be seen in reality. A force came down from the void. Boom! Tens of millions of people on the scattered stars island. He only saw the sky. Cracks appeared on the Great Tao, and a rain of blood poured down. At this moment, everyone was dumbfounded. Yes? Everyone who saw this scene was dumbfounded. Not only those powerhouses, but also those ordinary hanging fissures. Even the dangling fissures. Although they couldn't see the specific process of the battle clearly, they were still able to see it clearly. They saw Gate King Chu slash out a sword light that was 10,000 feet long. And the result? The sword light was broken. And King Chu was torn to pieces. Han Fei grabbed his head and blew it up. These ordinary cultivators didn't care how complicated the ability was. They only saw that Han Fei slaughtered a venerable in less than a second as easily as slaughtering a little white fish. Therefore, the ordinary cultivators, the law enforcers, and the explorers on the scattered stars island who witnessed this scene were all trembling slightly at this moment. Someone grinned. General Han is back. Strong, too fucking strong. He slaughtered a venerable. This seems to be the powerful venerable of the Chu sect. He was slaughtered in one move. At the Empyrean waterfall, the star tortoise's scalp was numb, and his whole turtle shell was trembling. He muttered, "It's terrible. It's really terrible. I knew it, I knew it." These people occupied the Scattered Stars Island. When Han Fei returns, he will be furious. The star tortoise had thought that there would be a battle when Han Fei returned, but he didn't expect that Han Fei would be so strong. He didn't expect that Han Fei could kill a super strong peak-level venerable so easily. This was a peak-level venerable. He wasn't a small fish or shrimp. Was it really so easy to kill him? Seeing this scene, Shueishenqi was speechless for a long time. Maybe this was the so-called strong who was born in time. Only such a person could be destined to become a king, right? He had been the supreme commander of the Scattered Stars Island for 50 years and had been very rational and patient. He controlled the war between the Scattered Stars Island and the sea demons and used this war to cultivate and shape talents for mankind. But now it seemed that Han Fei had changed his conservative ideas in just a few years. Now, the sea demons had been slaughtered. Judging from Han Fei's current strength, the major clans in the Thousand-Star City would probably be finished soon. As for the so-called king, that was pure bullshit. If someone could become a king here, he would have done it a long time ago. Why would he wait until now? It was most likely that the big clans found an excuse to rule the entire Yin-Yang heaven. Otherwise, the lack of resources would really cost them their lives. Seeing this scene, Old Chen in the Scattered Stars archive couldn't help but click his tongue. He was writing something in a record of the supreme commanders of the Scattered Stars Island, and there were words on the pen. Now, General Han has returned, opened the sky curtain, and challenged Sect Master Chu, whose strength is at the peak-level venerable level. With one blow, Sect Master Chu's sword was broken, and he died. On the Scattered Stars Island, only Shueishenqi, Old Chen, and Star Tortoise stood on Han Fei's side. The other four venerables were scared out of their wits when they saw Han Fei kill Sect Master Chu with one blow in the sky curtain. That was Sect Master Chu, a terrifying existence who could almost defeat the Thousand-Star City, but he couldn't even take one blow. Their first thought was to escape. But now, it seemed to be too late. At that moment, Shueishenqi, Star Tortoise, and Old Chen tacitly soared into the sky, tore the void, and blocked these people. Not only Shueishenqi, but he also saw that tens of thousands of kilometers away, Ning Jing also appeared. She said to him via voice transmission, "You're finally back. Do you need my help?" Han Fei smiled. "There's no need." In the next moment, Han Fei put on his armor, his robe fluttering, and holding Snowmorn, he walked in the void. In the eyes of ordinary people, he seemed to be strolling in the void. Han Fei's voice echoed for tens of thousands of kilometers. "Everyone on the Scattered Stars Island, I, Han Fei, have returned today. The big families of the Thousand-Star City imprisoned Mr. Shueishenqi, occupied my mansion, and exploited the people. Their crimes are unforgivable. Ladies and gentlemen, this city of ours is named Justice. Our aspiration is freedom for all. Whoever is weak will be killed. Whoever oppresses the people will be killed. Anyway, I want to tell you today that you will not submit to anyone. You are the true masters of this land, of this sea." When Han Fei spoke, he didn't kill the other four people. He took a step out of the void and walked above the sea. The blue sea was surging, and the void was shaking. An old man quickly walked out of the void. As soon as Sect Master Chu sent the message, Old Monster Chu had come as fast as he could. However, he didn't expect that Sect Master Chu would suddenly die within a second after delivering the message. When Old Monster Chu saw Gate King Chu's life tablet shatter, he felt like his heart was about to explode. He didn't know who could kill Sect Master Chu in such a short time. Unless the other party was as strong as him. However, as far as he knew, whether it was Han Guanshu, Tang Yan, or the woman who appeared with Han Fei. They were all half-king realm cultivators. Old Monster Chu even thought that it would be great if the three of them could appear at the same time. He could take down all three of them at once. But now, he didn't take them down, and Sect Master Chu died first. Old Monster Chu, the four martial supremacies that were frantically fleeing let out sighs of relief when they saw eccentric Chu had arrived. The current Old Monster Chu had truly broken through the limit of the half-king realm. The reason why Old Monster Chu was in the Thousand-Star City recently was that he attacked the Chow family, forcing the Chow family to use the mountain protecting array. Seeing that the four people relaxed, Han Fei smiled disdainfully. Why, how do you know that Old Monster Chu can save you? Of the four people, Han Fei only knew one, and that was Sun Baisheng, the guy who didn't show up all year round. Old Monster Chu looked into the distance and snorted coldly. Just the two of you. Haha, Han Fei sneered, activated the power of the Great Path, and his momentum became stronger and stronger. As Han Fei's strength increased, the void around him became unstable. Bam! Han Fei just clenched his fist, and the void exploded like thunder. When the power gathered, Han Fei took a deep breath, and infinite energy entered his body. When Old Monster Chu saw this scene, Sun Baisheng and the others not far behind him felt their blood freeze. They saw the void around Han Fei collapse and turn into an energy storm, pouring into Han Fei's body frantically. Old Monster Chu took a deep breath. What a strong power! But do you know my great path? Time, forbid, BAM. In the eyes of outsiders, the sky seemed to freeze. However, the next moment, like the ice surface breaking, a scarlet and powerful fist mark pierced through the sky. Rumble. Old Monster Chu retreated 100 kilometers, his hands trembling. Only he knew that the insides of his two arms were completely shattered. However, this was not what surprised Old Monster Chu the most. He said in shock, "You can break the time spell." Han Fei smiled and said, "You haven't even reached the sea expansion realm. Do you think you're qualified?" As Han Fei spoke, his speed soared to the extreme, 1,000 kilometers in one step. The fist mark was formed again, and Old Monster Chu immediately punched it. But the void twisted, and Han Fei disappeared, bypassed him, and appeared 1,000 kilometers away. Huh! A dragon roar exploded, and hundreds of beasts devoured their souls. These ordinary venerables could no longer resist it. The four people didn't even have time to run, and even their bodies exploded. Time slash. Old Monster Chu certainly wouldn't allow Han Fei to kill the venerables. After all, they were all subordinates of the Chu sect. However, Han Fei turned around, stretched out his hand, and grabbed a crack in the void, turned it into a knife, and slashed at them. Puff, puff, puff. With only one slash, the three people were instantly decayed and turned into dust. Han Fei blocked the remaining time slash with a punch, and while retreating, the void lines had already sucked the three dead people. At that moment, the last person barely avoided Han Fei's knife because he ran fast. Han Fei didn't care much and shouted, "This place is forbidden." Then, Han Fei flicked his finger, and the infinity water turned into a long knife, sweeping across the sky, and chased after that person. Boom, boom, 4 cracks appeared in a row, and a rain of blood poured down as if there was a waterfall in the sky. Chapter 1632. After all, Han Fei had fought head-on with 2 pseudo-kings. He was also quite familiar with Jin Tong. Han Fei knew the power that a pseudo-king could possess. If it were before, Han Fei would definitely admit that he was no match for them. But now, Han Fei was really not afraid. Except for Xue Fan, Jin Tong, and the Black Killer Snail King could probably kill 3 pseudo-kings at most. Moreover, killing 4.5 kings should be enough, right? However, it didn't mean that his comprehensive strength in all aspects was 4 times that of a pseudo-king. In fact, a pseudo-king could be twice as strong as an ordinary pseudo-king, or even more than twice as strong as an ordinary pseudo-king. And now, in terms of physique, Han Fei had definitely reached the pseudo-king realm. He had gone through 2 heavenly tribulations. His indestructible golden body was so strong that his flesh and blood couldn't attach to it. His basic strength might be 20 to 30% stronger than that of an ordinary pseudo-king. With such strength, Han Fei could even face old Monster Chu with the power of the Great Way. In particular, because of the time ring, old Monster Chu's Great Way was useless to him. Therefore, in Han Fei's view, fighting against old Monster Chu was not very difficult. Old Monster Chu saw that Han Fei killed 4 people in a row in front of him. Plus King Chu, who had died before, Han Fei killed 5 people in a row as soon as he showed up. At this moment, he had to admit that Han Fei had risen to the point that even he might not be able to deal with him. The shock in old Monster Chu's heart couldn't be any greater. In fact, he had been looking for Han Fei all these years. However, Han Fei seemed to have disappeared. There was no trace of him at all. Now, Han Fei appeared. His strength was so terrifying. If he hadn't made that breakthrough, wouldn't he have been defeated or even killed by Han Fei? Han Fei smiled and looked at the wound made by the time slash on his body. A holy and gentle ray of light descended upon them. The wound? It was completely healed in the blink of an eye. Han Fei said, "Old Monster Chu, I heard that you have become a king. Congratulations, congratulations. Come on. Let's have a fight. Let me feel the horror of a king." Old Monster Chu snorted. Han Fei. In fact, you and I don't need to fight like this. What if all the places outside the 1,000-star city belong to you? You and I will mind our own business. Hee. Han Fei looked at old Monster Chu as if he were an idiot. Do you believe it yourself? Now you know to admit defeat. What happened to your valiant, high-spirited attitude when you hunted me down? Old Monster Chu narrowed his eyes and said, "You and I fight? Lives would be plunged into misery and suffering. Since you want to become a king, don't tell me you don't care about them." Han Fei put on a disdainful smile. Enough? Don't waste time with me. Even if I can buy you a few breaths of time. What can you do? He's already at the false king realm. In that case, let's be more strong-willed. You want it? If the aristocratic families give up all their properties and hand over their treasuries, I'll forgive some of them and let them live in seclusion. Or, I'll attack the 1,000-star city and destroy the aristocratic families myself. Old Monster Chu narrowed his eyes. Han Fei, do you really think you are invincible? Your current strength should be inferior to mine. Although you can block my great Tao, it should also be your great Tao that you have such powerful battle prowess. Han Fei grinned. Yes, so what? The 1,000-star city is only so big and there are only so many venerables. Why don't you find another fake king? If you find another one, I'll let you live a few more years. Or, you can try to hunt me. Old Monster Chu's heart surged. At this time, he had no time to care about the people's feelings. The moment of life and death for the Chu sect, or the entire aristocratic families had come. At this time, only one thing could be done, which was to kill Han Fei. Only in this way could everything get back on track. Once Han Fei died, as long as the people's hatred for the aristocratic families in their hearts was diluted with time, they could even directly change the mode of governance here. Old Monster Chu snorted, and the void behind him cracked. He looked at Han Fei. Then I'll wait and see. If old Monster Chu wanted to leave, Han Fei couldn't stop him now. In the void, Han Fei reached out and grabbed another 3 Sun Moon shells. On the other side, the infinity water also returned with a Sun Moon shell. Han Fei grabbed a few Sun Moon shells and glanced at them. He didn't need things like spirit awakening fluid anymore. There weren't many spiritual springs, because venerables didn't need to store much spiritual energy. To be honest, Han Fei didn't really care about the other materials. But a small part of them could be kept and might be useful in the future. As for the rest, he would donate them all. After quickly distributing the materials, Han Fei smiled. The sky was already blooming, and Han Fei strolled high in the sky, his figure slowly enlarging. Clatter, it's General Han. It's General Han indeed. Oh my god. General Han is back. He killed 5 venerables in a row. How strong is General Han? For a moment, the entire Scattered Stars Island was filled with exclamations. In the City of Justice, countless people were flying in the air, and an endless stream of pedestrians were on the streets, looking up at the sky. Han Fei scanned with his perception. Now the Scattered Stars Island had covered 8,000 kilometers. It was much bigger than when he first came here. It was not easy to achieve this. In Han Fei's ears, he heard countless shouts and discussions everywhere. Among them, Han Fei also learned something from these people. For example, someone asked the people around him blankly, "Is the hatred between General Han and the big clans his hatred or ours?" The person just now seems to be the one who said last time. He has become a king, right? As soon as this person finished asking, several people next to him sneered. Boy, what do you know? King. That's just what he said. When the king saw General Han, he ran away with his tail between his legs. Someone cursed, "The hatred between General Han and the big clans is the hatred between ordinary people and the big clans." The City of Justice stands for the justice in our hearts, for the justice of all people, and for the freedom of the world. Here, there is no exploitation. As long as there is adventure, everyone is equal. This is the reason why we come to the City of Justice. But what about the big clans? Only a few people are stationed here. There is already a shortage of materials on the market. Some important materials have to be bought on the black market. Is this still the City of Justice? Someone responded, "That old man from the Chu sect moved the statue of General Han more than 2 years ago with the excuse that he had become a king. Not only the Scattered Stars Island, but also the 36 towns. Why? Because only General Han can represent the hearts of our people." Many latecomers had only heard of Han Fei's legend, but they didn't know Han Fei's influence on the Scattered Stars Island. In particular, as the Scattered Stars Island was getting bigger and bigger, there were more and more adventurers in the City of Justice. Many people could only listen to Han Fei's legend. Today, when they saw Han Fei in person, there were certainly some controversies. Standing in the sky, Han Fei couldn't count how many people were on this island. If it were only 1,000,000, he could count it quickly. However, there were at least twice as many people here as before. And these were the people who were stationed on the island, not including the adventurers who wandered in the outer sea. In the discussion, Han Fei thought of the power of faith. Standing in the void with his hands behind his back, Han Fei grinned. "My compatriots. My name is Han Fei, the current Supreme Commander of the Scattered Stars Island. Do you remember me?" "Yes. Of course, who doesn't remember General Han? We can't forget him at all." In the sea of cheers, Han Fei felt that he was like a superstar, with a unique style. It was like holding a concert. The only thing missing was a line, "Everyone, shake the glow sticks in your hands, and sway with me." Han Fei stretched out his hand from behind, pointed at the blood rain in the sky, and said, "Everyone, let me tell you a secret. When a venerable dies, a crack will appear. There is a lot of energy in it, which may even be mixed with the luck of a venerable, which can help you make a breakthrough. Anyway, you are all venerables from big families. It's not a pity if you die. I think it's not enough. What do you think?" With that, Han Fei winked at everyone playfully. "Ha ha ha," someone laughed. "Look, is this General Han? Although he is extremely powerful, it's really good for us." Someone quickly sat cross-legged and shouted to his friend, "Sit down and watch while making a breakthrough." That person shouted, "No. How can a breakthrough be more important than watching General Han's speech?" Han Fei put away the smile on his face and pretended to be sad. "My compatriots, I heard that an idiot from a big family came to you 2 years ago and told you that he had become a king. I was confused at that time. Is it possible to become a king in this sea area? So, when I came back today, well, I'm very sure that that person is really crazy." Han Fei changed his tone. "Let me tell you. In this world, it is actually impossible to become a king. Wow, suddenly, countless people were shocked. Someone was shocked. Can't become a king. Really? Someone didn't care. Kings. Those are all legendary existences. Anyway, they have nothing to do with us. Someone wondered, why can't they become a king? Han Fei smiled. Let me keep you in suspense for a moment. This is a secret that even all the big families in the Thousand-Star City don't know. But I know. So, wait for me to kill them one by one in a few days, and then I'll tell you this secret. At that time, I won't charge you any money. Ha! Puff! Someone was speechless. Since when did Marshal Han become so funny? Someone couldn't help but laugh. Interesting, this is a little different from the previous Marshal Han. Someone couldn't help but sigh. Now I wonder if this is the Marshal Han we know, but suddenly, in their eyes, Han Fei's face was suddenly full of cracks. On his hands, on his neck, there were cracks everywhere. At this time, Han Fei put away the smile on his face, and his temperament became serious and gloomy. Han Fei said lightly, I don't want you to see it, for fear of scaring you. But everyone, I've tried my best, walked through countless dangerous places, fought countless battlefields, and slaughtered countless venerables. I've done all this not to conquer a huge sea area and bring disaster to the big families. Han Fei's tone became more and more serious. I know that some of you think that the contradiction between me and the big families extends to you. However, what I'm fighting for is the general trend. I'm fighting for the future of the human race. Whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter. I'm going to destroy the big families. At that moment, countless people looked at Han Fei's face in shock. For a moment, on the Scattered Stars Island, countless people were silent. In the crowd, He Xiaoyu was there, Lin Wu was there, Yu Lingyun was there, Mu Jia was there, and Guan Qingyan was there. Han Fei's former subordinates were all there. These people looked at Han Fei, and for some reason, their faces gradually became serious. Immediately, someone was moved. Marshal Han, we support you. Someone shouted, Marshal Han, although we are not strong enough, we will never bow to the big families in this life. Someone was moved. Kill him. Under the solemn gaze of countless people, Han Fei pointed to the sky. The old monster of the Chu sect said that he has become a king. If he dares to say it, I dare to fight him. My compatriots, wait for me for a few days. In this world, do the big families have the final say? Or do you have the final say? I'm going to have a good chat with them. With that, Han Fei turned around and went away. The sky curtain closed. At that moment, a lonely voice rippled between heaven and earth. My name is Han Fei, and I want to kill the king. Chapter 1633. Han Fei didn't go to the Thousand-Star City immediately. He had to go, but he wasn't in a hurry. At this time, the first thing Han Fei had to do was to get the power of hope back. Now, because his statues were destroyed, the power of hope of the Scattered Stars Island and the 36 towns had declined significantly. Of course, as long as someone sincerely prayed to Han Fei could always receive the power of hope. However, if the statues were moved away, it would inevitably affect a large number of people. Some ordinary cultivators who didn't know what was going on might even think that something had happened. Therefore, this matter couldn't be tolerated. It wasn't until the moment just now that Han Fei clearly felt the feeling of the power of hope merging into his body. However, it was far from enough for these people on the Scattered Stars Island to see it. Han Fei now needed a lot of power of hope to disassemble spiritual energy. As he grew faster and faster, the improvement of his spiritual energy disassembly rate was crucial. For example, the old turtle said that his spiritual energy disassembly rate had reached 95%. He couldn't be weaker than the old turtle, could he? But in fact, according to his current growth rate, when he reached the half-king realm, it was hard to say whether his spiritual energy disassembly rate could reach 85%. The insect king's spiritual energy disassembly rate was still 88%, he was the master of the yin-yang heaven and the master of the divine palace, but his spiritual energy disassembly rate couldn't keep up. It was a bit ridiculous. Therefore, before the battle just now, Han Fei released the sky curtain and successfully staged a big show. Han Fei's first step, of course, was to get back the power of hope of the Scattered Stars Island. Obviously, this step was successful. However, he hadn't gotten back the power of hope of the 36 towns yet. How could he get it back? After all, his realm was now higher, and so were his needs. He couldn't count on the Scattered Stars Island. After all, this was just an island. Everyone could see what was happening here. But the area of the 36 towns was large. Even if Han Fei wanted to go to them one by one and give a speech, it would take him a few days. So, in the city lord's mansion, Han Fei said, "Wang Lin, come here." Wang Lin, the former commander of the logistics division, was transferred to the Ministry of Construction by Han Fei because he was good at observing people's expressions. He served as the minister. He once built a cultivation tower for the tens of thousands of people on the Scattered Stars Island to admire the bones of the venerable. Today, Wang Lin, of course, also saw Han Fei's means of killing 5 venerables in a row. He was also shocked and thought to himself, Han Fei may be the first supreme commander in history to be so powerful. A human venerable. He didn't even bat an eyelid when he said he would kill him. Moreover, other people might not know how terrifying King Chu was, but the leaders of the Scattered Stars Island knew something about it. What the fuck? The current patriarch of the Chu clan. A top-notch existence at the peak of the venerable realm. There were only a handful of people on the Scattered Stars Island who could take the slap. That kind of expert. Han Fei killed him with a slap. Now, Han Fei just finished his speech. He thought he had gone to the 1,000-star city. However, he didn't expect that Han Fei would find him first. The Ministry of Construction. Wang Lin didn't know whether he should cry or not. Should he laugh? He hurriedly replied, "Commander Han, I'm here. I'll be right there." In the general's mansion, Han Fei stood in front of the sea map with his back to Wang Lin. Wang Lin smiled obsequiously. "Commander Han, I knew you would come back. That bastard Chu clan bullied us. I'm so weak that I couldn't do anything when your statue was pulled down. Commander Han, don't worry. In 3 days, your statue will be built." Hearing Wang Lin's words, Han Fei turned around leisurely. When Wang Lin saw Han Fei's face full of cracks with his own eyes, he couldn't help but be horrified. Han Fei was already so powerful. How could he still be injured like this? If he was fighting with someone, how powerful must that person be to beat Han Fei like this? Han Fei said leisurely, "The poor 36 towns, hundreds of millions of people, just ushered in hope, but it was shattered in just a few years. Their emotions fluctuated like waves, up and down, and they thought I deceived them." Wang Lin immediately perked up. He instantly understood what Han Fei meant. Han Fei's statue was pulled down, the 36 towns thought the era of Han Fei's rule was over, and the City of Justice became a joke. Wang Lin bowed and shouted, "Commander Han, the people of the 36 towns will never forget your contributions to mankind. This subordinate will let them know that Marshal Han has returned within a month. This time, you will sweep the world, wipe out the big families in the 1,000-star city, and create a glorious era for the human race." The more Wang Lin spoke, the more excited he became. Tranquility, who heard him, felt that his blood was freezing. This man is so disgusting. He almost worships Han Fei as a god. Han Fei sighed gloomily. Wang Lin, among the middle and senior officials of the City of Justice, only you know me best. You heard me. I will go to the sky and kill the king, but before that, I have to let the people know that I have returned. I also need the people's confidence and encouragement. Do you understand? Yes, 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 Wang Lin broke out in a cold sweat, feeling that his back was all wet. For some reason, standing in front of Han Fei, he had a kind of fear from the bottom of his heart. Gulp, Wang Lin swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Half a month. In this half a month, I will do my best to erect statues of Marshal Han on every island in the 36 towns. Announce to the world that you have returned and will go to the sky to kill the king. Han Fei immediately put on a smile. Thank you for your hard work. Fine. In half a month, I will go to the sky. Spread this news. I need everyone in the City of Justice and the 36 towns to know about this. During this period, on the premise that the normal operation of the Scattered Stars Island is not affected, all the personnel are at your disposal. With that said, Han Fei took out a 13-star token, which was his highest commander token, symbolizing authority, and no one dared to copy it. Han Fei threw it casually, and Wang Lin caught it with both hands, his heart shaking. Damn, this is too exciting. From this moment on, he would be the most powerful person on the Scattered Stars Island, but he didn't dare to use this token at all. At this moment, Wang Lin's whole body was hot, which was a kind of excitement of being appreciated. Wang Lin shouted, "Don't worry, General Han. I guarantee with my head that in half a month, except for the 1,000-star city, even the sea demons in the sea will know the news of you going to the sky to kill the king." Han Fei's lips curled slightly. Okay. You use a knife, don't you? I have some insights on saber techniques. Fine, I'll teach it to you. The moment Han Fei handed over the jade slip, Wang Lin deeply understood what it meant to die for a bosom friend. At this moment, even if he had to sacrifice his life, he would definitely complete this task. In half a month, he would erect Han Fei's statue on every island in the 36 towns. After sending Wang Lin away, Han Fei looked at the void, only to hear someone say, "You actually want people to erect a statue for you? That's too narcissistic." Han Fei smiled lightly. "You don't understand. I'm doing this for mankind." The void trembled, and Serenity broke through the void and looked at Han Fei strangely. "I really don't see that you're doing this for mankind." "Fine, have you been in the Wall of Death for the past few years? Isn't it very dangerous? You seem to be seriously injured." Jing couldn't stop muttering, "That's not right. How could your strength improve so quickly? When you left, you were only a junior peak-level venerable. In just 4 years, you broke through 2 realms in a row. How did you do it?" He could only hear peaceful Serenity's mouth like a machine gun, chattering non-stop. Han Fei immediately said, Stop, stop, stop. What I've experienced in the past few years. It's very complicated, so I won't tell you one by one. Tell me first, what's the current situation in the 1,000-star city?" Serenity shrugged. "Well, I don't know. I didn't go to the 1,000-star city. But I've met your father twice. He said that the 1,000-star city was fine and that I didn't need to pay attention to it." "Huh? Where is old Han?" Serenity said, "The last time I saw him was half a year ago, in the outer sea. At that time, the old man from the Chu family wanted to kill me, but he didn't run as fast as I did. So, I know that his so-called King Cheng is fake. If Her Majesty wants to catch me, she can easily cut off my way. Later, I accidentally fell into the old man's ambush, and your father saved me." Han Fei was slightly taken aback. "My father saved you?" Serenity said, "Your father's strength has reached the half-king realm. And, not an ordinary half-king realm. He's very strong." Han Fei raised his eyebrows. "Okay. Let's go to the 36 towns and have a look." 3 days later. Han Fei's statue was re-established on the Scattered Stars Island. Millions of people watched the ceremony, but Han Fei didn't appear. 7 days later. The Fish Dragon Hot Pot restaurant in the Blue Sea town of the 36 towns. Today's Fish Dragon Hot Pot restaurant had become the signature of the Blue Sea town. The Hot Pot restaurant claimed that Han Fei invented the hot pot himself. Therefore, many members of the Fish Dragons preferred to call it Han Fei's Hot Pot restaurant. But in the past 2 years, the business of the Fish Dragon Hot Pot restaurant had been declining. Although no one attacked the hot pot restaurant, from the moment Han Fei's statue was removed, many people began to guess if something had happened to Han Fei. Many members of the Fish Dragons waited in fear and trepidation for 4 years. Until recently, when the sky turned red after the rain and cracks appeared. Many people who knew it began to spread rumors that some venerables had fallen. And the death of 5 venerables in a row shocked the hundreds of millions of people in the 36 towns. Venerables. What kind of strong master was that? In just a few seconds, 5 people died in a row. Just what kind of saint could achieve such a result? At first, some people thought it was the counterattack of the sea demons. But on that day, the mayors and village leaders of the 36 towns came out to refute the rumors and declared, Han Fei's return has ended the rule of the big families on the Scattered Stars Island, on this day. At the entrance of the Fish Dragon Hot Pot restaurant. At noon, 3,000 members gathered at the Fish Dragon Hot Pot restaurant. Li Gang, his wife Little Red, Li Qing, the deputy leader of the Fish Dragons, Chen Eryu, the manager of the Fish Dragon Card Room, Li Baishi, the manufacturer of the Fish Dragon Cards, and Li Duoyu, the owner of the Fish Dragon Specialty Store, stood outside the door in person. The behavior of the Fish Dragons shocked the entire Blue Sea town. What the fuck happened? Why did they have to make such a big scene? Many smart people realized something. So, in a moment, the Blue Sea town was in an uproar. It was said that General Han had returned to his hometown and was in the Fish Dragon Hot Pot restaurant at this moment. As a result, all the people on the island rushed to see Han Fei. In the exclusive box of the Fish Dragon Hot Pot restaurant, Li Gang and Little Red were serving dishes and wine to Han Fei and Peaceful. Li Gang had a son who was just 8 years old this year. He was responsible for pouring wine for Han Fei and Peaceful. Peaceful was stuffing herself with food. The plates in front of her were swept clean one after another. Her stomach was almost a bottomless hole that seemed to lead to the sea. Peaceful had just finished eating a crab dumpling and was about to call Li Gang to serve when she suddenly heard Han Fei say, "Okay, let's call it a day." Peaceful couldn't help but say regretfully, "You didn't tell me about such a delicious place until now." Han Fei shrugged. "Don't you know it now?" Li Gang said with a smile, "Sir, for your convenience, I have ordered the kitchen to work at full speed and have made hundreds of dishes of various kinds. They are all for you to take away." Of course, Peaceful had already known it. She immediately grinned and said, "Okay, then I'll take them all." Then, Peaceful glanced at Han Fei and then at the child who was pouring wine for her. She immediately said, "Fine, I won't eat other people's food for free. This child looks smart. I'll give him a drop of jade crystal marrow, which can help him cleanse his muscles and marrow. It can upgrade his level 3 spiritual heritage to a level 6 spiritual heritage." Li Gang and Little Red were so overjoyed that they couldn't close their mouths. Little Red said, "Thank you, Master." "Thank you, Master." Thank you, Master and this fairy." The child must have been taught a lesson. At this moment, he was quite eloquent. "Thank you, Master." "Thank you, Master." Peaceful waved her hand, and Li Han entered a meditative state. He stood where he was and did not move. Han Fei shook his head slightly and looked at Li Gang. Hee. It seems that this kid is quite lucky. Damn, you really don't know how to give names. How tacky. Hee. Han Fei got up and threw a sea-swallowing seashell to Li Gang. A level 6 spiritual heritage is very expensive. This is my reward for your hard work over the years. If you don't know how to use it, go to the Scattered Stars Island and ask around. Now, go out and have a look." Li Gang immediately put the sea-swallowing seashell into his sleeve. While thanking Han, he winked at Little Red. "You take our son here to cleanse his muscles and marrow." Chapter 1634. The entrance of the Fish Dragon Hot Pot restaurant was already crowded with people. The entire Blue Sea town knew that the Fish Dragons were a benign gang. Not only did they not bully the Bai family, but they also assisted the villages in the Blue Sea Town from time to time. In the entire Blue Sea Town, many people wanted to join the fish dragons. However, the security was extremely strict, and it was very difficult to enter. A few days ago, Han Fei killed 5 of them in a row. When the news of ascending to the heavens and slaying the king spread, many people actually treated it as a story. Later, on the 3rd day after the story spread, Han Fei's statue began to be rebuilt. The construction of the statues in the villages under the Blue Sea Town had also begun. At this moment, it was unknown who had guessed it, or what. In short, the news of Marshal Han's arrival spread like snowflakes. For a moment, the entire Blue Sea Town went crazy. The principals of the 3 academies brought their teachers, and the teachers brought their students. The others, including many great fishing masters and dangling fishers, all came to admire Han Fei. Outside the Fish Dragon Hot Pot restaurant, the 3,000 sect members raised their heads in anticipation. Many people had never seen the leader of the Fish Dragon since they joined them, and they had always heard about him as a legend. At this moment, his heart was filled with emotions that could not be described with words. And Han Fei didn't let them down. Since he had already shown himself, the ones who should be nervous should be Old Monster Chu and the others. They didn't have any means to stop him. Therefore, he could go to the 1,000-star city at any time. What a joke. He was able to come out from that place many years ago, let alone now. And the reason why Han Fei waited until now was to wait for all the statues to be built. The Blue Sea Town was the 13th town that Han Fei had visited with serenity. Han Fei called it an inspection. When the 2 of them walked out of the Fish Dragon Hot Pot restaurant, countless people immediately looked up at Han Fei with fiery eyes and rapid breathing. In the crowd, a faint, fragmented sound could be heard. Is that Commander Han? Is that really Commander Han? What Commander Han? Was that the gang leader? That's our gang leader. Others have to call him General Han, but we have to call him gang leader. Oh my, is that the leader? What a stalwart body. Someone sighed. Back then, how many days did I follow the gang leader? I took care of the garden for the gang leader. Someone rolled their eyes. You've mentioned this 800 times. Fortunately, I wasn't there at that time. Otherwise, would you even have a chance to look at the garden? Immediately, Li Qing, Li Eryu, Li Baishi, Li Youyu, and the others all came. All of them stepped forward and shouted in unison, "Greetings, clan leader." Then, 3,000 sect members. They shouted in unison, "Greetings, gang leader." The corners of Han Fei's mouth raised slightly. He glanced at the mayor and the 3 deans, who had complicated looks in their eyes. Back then, they despised the 4th Academy so much and hoped to win by quantity. But reality proved. A prodigy was a prodigy. A million ordinary people. Nor could it stop the rise of a peerless prodigy. Han Fei stepped into the void. He stepped on the Great Spirit Gathering Array, and a dragon of spirit energy gathered under his feet. Han Fei activated his invincible golden body. He was more than 30 meters tall. This scene caused countless people's breathing to quicken. The golden color was always so mesmerizing. His tall body was always shocking. This represented his valiance and strength. Han Fei said faintly, "Yes. When I founded the fish dragons, I said that the fish dragons should behave themselves, not disturb the order, and not dominate others. In these aspects, you have done a good job. A gang is not about fighting fiercely. You have done a good job in this regard. I am now the commander of the Scattered Stars Island and the representative of countless ordinary humans. I can't give you special treatment just because you come from the gang I founded. I came back this time just to take a look at the human world before I go to the sky to kill a king." Han Fei said calmly and in a relaxed tone. The gang members on the ground didn't know why strong masters like Han Fei and the others still needed to fight. However, they knew that Han Fei was fighting for countless people and for mankind. That was enough. Li Gang shouted, gang leader will win, gang leader will win. Below, the 3,000 people shouted in unison, gang leader will win. Han Fei smiled and motioned for the crowd to stop shouting. He glanced around and said with a dignified look, I'm already here. It would be rude if I didn't say a few words. Han Fei said seriously, since a long time ago, I have wondered why the Blue Sea Town is a town instead of a city. Because the city is above the Blue Sea Town and the 36 towns. But there are hundreds of millions of people in the 36 towns, and very few people can enter the city. This is obviously unfair. How can the big families allow the weak people of the 36 towns to enter the city for personal gain? I tell you, the spiritual energy there is stronger, and the ancient books there are more abundant. But why do all the good things belong to the 1,000-star city? Why can't the people share them? Han Fei's voice was like rolling thunder, echoing over the Blue Sea Town. Han Fei smiled casually. So, I'm going to open up the 1,000-star city and wipe out the big families in the 1,000-star city. I heard that 2 years ago, a member of a big family in the 1,000-star city claimed that he had become a king. That person plundered a lot of resources while I was away. These resources were exchanged for by countless people at the risk of their lives. Just because he said he would take it, who did he think he was? So, I'm going to take back everything they have taken. So, I'm going to ascend to the sky and kill the king. I don't ask you to pray for me to return victorious, but I just hope you can know that this world, this sea, does not belong to one person and should be shared by everyone. Throughout history, the people were the easiest to be incited, even if they were all cultivators. When Han Fei's speech ended, many people cheered. Come on, Marshal Han. Destroy the big families. Marshal Han, we support you. Marshal Han, you must open up the 1,000-star city. Let's see what kind of place it is. What Han Fei was promoting was freedom and labor that would be rewarded with effort. In Han Fei's words, the 1,000-star city was no longer a mysterious place, and the big families in the 1,000-star city had become synonymous with exploitation. Even Peaceful believed that Han Fei was saving the humans of the Yin-Yang heaven in another way and leading them to glory. However, only one person knew that Han Fei was doing this for the power of faith. That was the old turtle. If Han Fei was really doing this for the general trend of the human race, there wouldn't have been such a problem before. And Han Fei broke through the limit of his own belief, definitely not because of the general trend of the human race. Therefore, the purpose of Han Fei going through the 36 towns was just to give a lecture tour, so that more people could see and hear him, believe in him, and pray for him. When Han Fei really wiped out the big families in the 1,000-star city, it would be a big harvest. From the 1,000-star city to the scattered stars island, and then to the 36 towns, Han Fei was going to harvest the power of faith of the entire Yin-Yang heaven human clan by killing the king. As one of the few people who could understand Han Fei's intentions, the old turtle only felt that Han Fei was really not suitable to be a righteous person. The Thug Academy in the Blue Sea Town. The fish dragons were now in charge of this place. The plantation here was now the source of materials for the fish dragon hot pot restaurant. Therefore, it had always been heavily guarded. After Han Fei finished his speech, he quietly came to this place. There was no one here, but to Han Fei's surprise, there was still a guy here. It was the ghost-eyed giant crocodile that Han Fei won in the Wind Thunder Town. At this moment, the ghost-eyed giant crocodile looked at Han Fei in shock. You're back. Han Fei wondered, why are you still here? The ghost-eyed giant crocodile shrugged. The spiritual energy here is suitable. Why should I leave? Han Fei sneered. At first, he wanted to catch this guy and make it the school's spiritual beast. However, now that everyone else had left, this guy was still here. Han Fei said, the 10-year agreement has long passed. You are now free to come and go. Then, Han Fei thought for a moment and threw a sea-swallowing seashell to the ghost-eyed giant crocodile. Since we've known each other for a while, you can have it. In the future, maybe someone will come back here again. But who knows? If you want to stay, just stay. Half a month later. Han Fei traveled all over the 36 towns. And the half a month that he had agreed on with Wang Lin had arrived. In the entire Scattered Stars Island and the 36 towns, countless people raised their heads from time to time at the beginning of the day. They wanted to see if there were any cracks in the Tao. There were all kinds of discussions among the people. Someone said, "Do you think Marshal Han can win in the 1,000-star city this time?" Someone said firmly, "Of course, who is Commander Han?" The number of venerables he had killed could not even be counted with 2 hands. He will definitely be able to wipe out those great clans. On the Scattered Stars Island, someone sighed. I wonder how many resources the big families in the 1,000-star city have. The people who came down from the Scattered Stars Island sneered. I can only say that it's like the water in the sea. Justice City's nightclub was extremely lively today, almost full. Someone shouted, "Hey, why are there so many people today? Why didn't everyone go out to sea?" Someone sneered, "Who would be in the mood to go out to sea?" Today was a major event. Commander Han said that today was the day he would ascend to the heavens and slaughter the kings. Today, someone will definitely die. It's worth watching. TSK. Someone took a sip of wine and said, I really worry about the ordinary people in the 1,000-star city. That's a battle between venerables. Ordinary people can't deal with it, can they? While everyone was looking forward to it. In fact, Han Fei had already ascended to the heavens. Old Monster Chu couldn't block the entire 1,000-star city, so he couldn't block all the roads. For the current Han Fei, it was a piece of cake for him to break through the void. However, what Han Fei didn't know was that the moment he set off. In the archive room of the Scattered Stars Island, the old man who had been sitting for 100 years left with his knife. In the transverse mountain range of the Scattered Stars Island, Shueishenqi said lightly, since I chose a side, I knew this battle would happen sooner or later. In the level 3 fishery, Li Daxian sighed. What a pity. Although I'm no longer a human, I can't miss this battle. In the 1,000-star city, in a market somewhere. A scholarly middle-aged man was drinking tea as he calmly said, although all the hard work wasn't for this day, it's all done when the day comes. From now on, that kid doesn't need my help anymore. Chapter 1635. In the past, Ren Tianfei bragged that he had broken into the 1,000-star city twice. At that time, Han Fei felt it was quite impressive. Old Ren was indeed strong. However, as Ren Tianfei's identity was revealed, he was the controller of the Divine Palace. When he was in good condition, his strength was probably still at its peak. At that time, it wasn't a big problem for him to break into the 1,000-star city. Now that old Monster Chu had become a pseudo-king, could Ren Tianfei try again? However, Han Fei dared not. Han Fei's bold words had spread throughout the Scattered Stars Island and the 36 towns. Hundreds of millions of people had already heard of Han Fei after years of stories. Now, after Han Fei's inspection of the 36 towns and his statue was re-erected. Even if there were still people who didn't know Han Fei, they had probably heard of him. In the 1,000-star city, the major families had already dismissed their disciples. Those prodigies who could be squeezed out had basically all been squeezed out. Moreover, they usually moved from one island to another to prevent people from recognizing them. However, it was useless for those who were more famous. The big families were in a panic. The news that Han Fei killed King Chu with one move had already spread. No matter how conceited they were, they didn't dare to challenge Han Fei's strength at this moment. After all, they didn't have a peak-level venerable in their families. However, the juniors might be able to be sent away, but where could the venerables of the big families hide? They couldn't hide, so they could only pin their hopes on the Chu sect. After all, old Monster Chu had become a king. But in the entire Chu sect, only old Monster Chu knew the real reason. He didn't want to deliberately announce that he had become a king, otherwise he wouldn't have made such a small noise. He attacked the Chao family and controlled the Scattered Stars Island just to find something that others didn't understand, luck. But obviously, his efforts only led to Han Fei's return and a big fight. The 7 major sects had directly activated the mountain protecting array on the day Old Monster Chu became a pseudo-king. Because on that day, Old Monster Chu attacked the Heavenly Sword sect, intending to kill the Master of the Heavenly Sword to establish his prestige. But the Master of the Heavenly Sword sect took out a sword, which sealed the Heavenly Sword sect. The sword and Old Monster Chu exchanged blows, and Old Monster Chu left without any result. Up until now, the matter of Old Monster Chu becoming a king was mostly just a matter of lip service. However, there was no doubt that Old Monster Chu had become stronger. Because Old Monster Chu was the second. So he went to attack the Chao clan. Chao Tianji and Old Monster Chu fought for less than 3 breaths. Heavily injured, he retreated to the clan and opened the formation to seal the gate. At this point, the Venerable Ones had roughly guessed that Old Monster Chu had not become a king. Otherwise? Celestial Sword Master and Chao Tianji. Not a single one of them could escape. Of course. Even though everyone knew in their hearts that this was the case, but no one came out to refute. Did Old Monster Chu's strength skyrocket? It had already caused the 7 major sects and the Chu sect to seal their sects. This had already established the Chu clan as the most powerful family. Unfortunately, the strongest family. How long could it last? Like today. Han Fei ascended to the 1,000-star city. All the venerables were watching the battle between Han Fei and Old Monster Chu. Those venerables thought that it was just a duel between Old Monster Chu and Han Fei, and they were fighting for the throne. If Old Monster Chu was killed, they would have no choice but to admit defeat. After all, in a world of cultivators, the strong were revered. Which aristocratic family didn't rise like this? They had no other choice but to admit defeat. In fact, there were still people who knew the secret of this world. This place was surrounded by a cage that spanned 8 million kilometers. They could only go so far. Where could he hide at the ends of the earth? Bam! Suddenly, the clear sky above the 1,000-star city exploded. The ordinary people in the entire 1,000-star city didn't know what was going on. Above the Zhang family, Han Fei came. Half of the clansmen here had left. They seemed to have expected Han Fei's arrival. There were not many heavenly talents in the Zhang family. To be honest, Han Fei didn't care about the clansmen who stayed behind. Buzz buzz, the 2 venerables came out of seclusion one after another. Zhang Zhihua and Han Fei had known each other for a long time. At this moment, seeing Han Fei, he had mixed feelings. He still remembered when he first met Han Fei. At that time, Han Fei hadn't become a venerable yet. At that time, he couldn't beat Han Fei, let alone now. The person next to Zhang Zhihua was named Zhang Yun, a peak-level advanced venerable. He was the strongest combat power of the Zhang family now and one of the trump cards that allowed the Zhang family to stand tall in the 1,000-star city. Zhang Sun cupped his hands at Han Fei. I didn't expect you to come to my Zhang family first. Han Fei grinned and said, your Zhang family is rich. Since you're waiting for me here, you must have prepared all the resources, right? Zhang Sun was surprisingly calm. With a wave of his hand, 30 sun-moon shells floated in the air in front of him. Zhang Sun said, the resources of the Zhang family are here. However, Han Fei, the 1,000-star city, the 36 towns, and the scattered stars island can't do without the Zhang family. This world depends on the currency rules we have customized. Han Fei sneered. The currency rules can be redefined. With the power of the Zhang family, you should have heard of this long ago. Since you took the initiative to hand over the resources, I won't kill you. However, in the Zhang family, all the powerhouses above the law enforcer realm have been recalled. Don't even think about letting some of them mix with ordinary people at this time. It's useless. Hearing this, Zhang Zhihua immediately said anxiously, Han Fei. Our Zhang family has done our best. We'll give you the resources you want. You can kill us, including the 2 of us. But why can't the bloodline of the Zhang family be spared? Han Fei looked at Zhang Zhihua as if he were an idiot. Do you think I want to kill indiscriminately? Do you think I'll still attack those ordinary people with my current strength? Zhang Zhihua asked, then what do you mean? Han Fei looked at the Chu men and grinned. You have to exchange your life for it. The Zhang family has several venerables, and you'll have to kill them in the future. Your Zhang family has enjoyed the glory of a big family for tens of thousands of years, so in the future, you'll have to bear this enjoyment. All the descendants of the Zhang family must fight with me. When you win, you can return to being ordinary people. Fight? Zhang Sun and Zhang Zhihua were a little confused. Now, in the entire sea area, the sea demons had been killed everywhere, and their number had decreased sharply. Where could they go to fight? Han Fei stretched out his hand and grabbed the 30 sun moon shells. Scanning with his perception, even though he had a huge amount of resources, he couldn't help but exclaim at this moment, fuck, this is too rich. There were hundreds of millions of caddies of spiritual spring, as many as hundreds of thousands of tons. From ultra-quality to mid-low quality pearls, 20 sun moon shells were filled. The other sun moon shells were also filled with all kinds of spiritual fruits and materials. Han Fei couldn't estimate the value of these at all. However, Han Fei glanced at Zhang Sun coldly. Not enough. When I return from victory, remember to make up for it. Otherwise, don't blame me for forgetting what I just said. Han Fei didn't believe it. A super family that controlled almost the economic lifeline of the entire Yinyang heaven only had so few resources in its hands. No matter what Zhang Sun wanted to say, Han Fei didn't intend to listen. He stretched out his hand, tore the void, and with a flip of his hand, the mysterious heaven mirror appeared in his hand. At that moment, over the 1,000-star city, the sky curtain bloomed, and Han Fei was wearing a bright red battle suit, his long hair flying in the wind. In the sky curtain, Han Fei's body seemed to be flickering, because he seemed to be flashing dozens of kilometers with one step. Han Fei said, hundreds of millions of people of the 1,000-star city, my name is Han Fei, the current supreme commander of the Scattered Stars Island, from the 36 towns. I heard that the old monster of the Chu sect claimed to be a king. Today, I come to the 1,000-star city to wipe out the big families of the 1,000-star city. I once told you that I would make this world a world for all people. The 1,000-star city will be completely connected to the Scattered Stars Island and the 36 towns. The entire sea will be a place of adventure for you. Today, I'm here to fulfill my promise. As he spoke, Han Fei was less than 3,000 kilometers away from the Chu sect. In the 1,000-star city, countless people looked up. Someone sighed. It's that Han Fei from a few years ago. He's back again. But, can he really do it in such a short time? Someone sighed. How confident does he have to be to face the big families alone? Someone was puzzled. That old monster of the Chu sect has announced to be a king. Han Fei dares to challenge them. Has he also become a king? Someone sneered. Become a king? Maybe it's just that his strength has improved. If he really becomes a king, how can the central holy city not be opened? How can a king not show miracles? How can a king be challenged? The 7 major sections. Many people were also watching this scene. The so-called heavenly talents of the same generation as Han Fei were no longer arrogant when Han Fei became the supreme commander of the Scattered Stars Island. Gong Yuehan of the Jade Fairy Palace, Chu Sun of the Grand Void Academy, Lu Wuwei of the Death Door Sect. These people just looked up quietly at this moment. Above the void, Han Fei was moving forward. When he was 1,000 kilometers away from the Chu sect, he suddenly heard old monster Chu shout, Han Fei, I didn't expect you to really dare to come. Now that you're here, you don't have to leave. At that moment, a dot of starlight appeared behind Han Fei without warning. In the sky, before anyone realized what had happened, Han Fei had disappeared into thin air. When a dot of red light pierced through Han Fei's shadow, the void within 1,000 kilometers was instantly frozen. Holding Snowmorn, Han Fei slashed through half of the sky before anyone could see it clearly. Boom! Suddenly, a crack of the Great Path appeared in the sky. A venerable one died before anyone could even see him with their naked eyes. Countless people sucked in a cold breath. Shoot! What happened just now? Damn it! That's a venerable. He didn't even see the person, and he died. In countless exclamations, Han Fei felt the void was locked. Someone who had mastered the law of space had come. Han Fei smiled contemptuously and waved his hand. The infinity water poured out. At this moment, the infinity water was comparable to an ultra-quality divine weapon, and the blade purgatory was instantly formed. Behind Han Fei, hundreds of millions of blades surged forward like a long river. Swish swish above the sky, in the void, the waves of knife energy surged like a tide. Han Fei stood on the tide. Although he was walking alone, he looked like an army of billions. Chapter 1636. How could ordinary cultivators easily witness a battle between venerables? Clang! At the moment when Han Fei killed the venerable, a burst of laughter came from afar. It was none other than Ren Tianfei. Han Fei shouted, "Old guy, this is my battle. You don't need to intervene." While absorbing the soul power and vitality of the fallen venerable, Han Fei shouted at Ren Tianfei to retreat. Ren Tianfei laughed. "It's just a clone. Many people have been waiting for this for a long time. How can anyone stop you?" Ren Tianfei shouted loudly, and his voice rolled and shook the Thousand-Star Realm. "Mou, an advanced venerable from the Mo family of the Thousand-Star City, is dead." Ren Tianfei didn't speak, and many people didn't know who he was. After all, how could ordinary cultivators know about venerables? At this moment, as soon as Ren Tianfei roared, the entire Thousand-Star City was in an uproar. An advanced venerable? Was he the one who was killed by Han Fei before even showing his face? Someone sighed with emotion. How long would one have to cultivate to reach the high level of the Exalt realm? How great would one's natural talent be in order to achieve that? He was killed in the blink of an eye. General Han was really powerful. Relatively speaking, the Chu sect and the Mo family didn't feel good. Since they had chosen to fight against Han Fei, they had to be prepared to die. In this battle, there was no such thing as trickery. Han Fei was fighting openly, and they had nowhere to escape, so they could only fight passively. In order to deal with Han Fei's arrival, the Chu sect had no choice but to block the entire island and a large area of space. A young-looking strong man, holding a bean-shaped monster weapon in his hand, threw it into the void formation. In the blink of an eye, a void storm formed in the sealed void. Countless void blades tried to cut Han Fei. And the snowmorn in Han Fei's hand had been replaced by the embroidery needle. The staff opened the heaven gate, and a pitch-black passageway appeared out of thin air where the staff light pierced. In the blade purgatory, the wild knife twisted, and Han Fei sneered. "You set up a space chaos. But you're cowering. I'd like to see who this venerable is." With Han Fei's current strength, he might not know much about the Space Great Tao and the Time Great Tao. However, he also knew that if a venerable realm expert wanted to fully unleash the power of these two great Taos, it would be impossible. That was also impossible. So, the person who set this up wanted to defeat him through the Great Path when they were at the same level? The possibility of this was not high. Breaking 10,000 laws with one's strength, this saying was not a joke. No matter how many fancy tricks you have, in the end, it's just a fancy trick. This space was pierced by Han Fei's spear. The void twisted, and Han Fei's figure disappeared into the sky. In the next moment, Han Fei crossed thousands of kilometers and appeared in the sky again. At that moment, Han Fei grabbed a pitch-black knife light and slashed at the young man who set up the array. The young man's face changed drastically. He was about to take action, but Han Fei smiled. "There's a forbidden spell here." The youth was shocked. His power of the Great Tao was actually sealed. In the blink of an eye, an old man with white hair and beard suddenly appeared in front of the young man, holding a thick and heavy shield with 4 protruding corners in his hand. Humph! Han Fei's eyes turned cold, and a murderous aura surged from his body. He activated the ancient desolate war body, and his combat power doubled. With a slash of the saber, a clang resounded through the sky. Kacha! In the next moment, the huge shield that looked quite extraordinary was cracked by Han Fei's blow. The old man's arms exploded, blood spurted wildly from his mouth, and he was sent flying backward. Because it was blocked for a moment, the young man used the power of space and opened a portal. The next moment, the two appeared thousands of kilometers away together. However, Han Fei followed them like a shadow and arrived in an instant. Hey! Old Monster Chu! Did he really send you here to die? The old man and the young man were shocked. How could Han Fei's speed be so fast? Could he even catch up with this kind of teleportation? With Han Fei's speed, he actually didn't need an array at all. He caught up in the blink of an eye. However, as soon as he arrived, he saw a white shadow rushing over. The white shadow held a scythe-like weapon in his hand, trying to compete with Han Fei with speed. On the other side, an acquaintance of Han Fei finally appeared. It was Sun Xiaotian of the Sun family. This person locked the void with his sword, and his strongest sword condensed specks of starlight and rushed at Han Fei. In an instant, four advanced venerables attacked. With this kind of strength and cooperation, they could actually kill a peak-level venerable. Back in the Battle of the Undead City, there was an example of this. If they really fought with their lives on the line, where three high-rank venerable ones fought against a peak-stage venerable. With the sacrifice of two of them, they could definitely win. At this moment, four peak-level venerables attacked Han Fei at the same time. Oh, no. Han Fei suddenly raised his eyebrows. There was another person behind him. 5 peak-level venerables, they really think highly of me. Therefore, the young man who controlled the spatial technique and the old man who carried the shield were only baits. They knew that 2 people couldn't stop Han Fei, so they arranged 5 people to attack Han Fei at once. Han Fei could even be sure that old Monster Chu was looking for an opportunity to attack. Now, he just wanted to test Han Fei's real strength. However, Han Fei knew in his heart that these 5 people were likely to be used as cannon fodder by old Monster Chu. Because if he was half a king, none of these 5 people would be able to escape. In fact, it was true. When the fastest Yi family powerhouse was about to kill Han Fei with a weird blade, Han Fei suddenly used the close-distance technique. The speed of the Yi family's powerhouse suddenly slowed down. His eyes met Han Fei's, and the spatial blade in Han Fei's hand, in the blink of an eye, pressed into the body of the Yi family's venerable. Huh! As soon as the 100-beast soul devourer was activated, the venerable's body suddenly exploded. As soon as Han Fei swung the blade, the sacrificing punch burst out again, blasting at the person chasing behind him. On the other side, Han Fei saw Sun Xiaotian retreat. But how could he give this person a chance? So, Han Fei stepped in the void and used the close-distance technique. The young man who controlled the spatial technique immediately took action, trying to break Han Fei's close-distance technique. Han Fei smiled weirdly and spun the embroidery needle in his hand. I was waiting for you. When he used the spatial technique, the young man paused for a moment, giving Han Fei a chance. Puff! With one strike of the divine gate, the space effect was no longer useful, but time was temporarily frozen. Boom! He killed 2 people in a row in a very short time. At this time, a crack appeared, which represented the death of a venerable. Ren Tianfei's voice rolled and spread throughout the 1,000-star city. Yi Qinghuang, an advanced venerable of the Yi family of the 1,000-star city, is dead. Before he finished speaking, Ren Tianfei continued to shout, Li Qian, an advanced venerable of the Li family of the 1,000-star city, is dead. Above the sky, a rain of blood poured down. Han Fei's attack was too fast. In the blink of an eye, 2 people were killed. Who could survive this? Behind Han Fei, the powerhouse who took Han Fei's punch took advantage of the momentum and flew back. Originally, he was going to launch a sneak attack, but at this time, how could he fight? Was he going to die? Han Fei ignored the man and pointed his finger, and the knife waves thousands of kilometers away rolled back. Han Fei shouted, "Sun Xiaotian, I'd like to see whether your Sun family's immortal slaying formation or my knife is stronger." Trapping Sun Xiaotian with countless knife waves, Han Fei casually blasted out hundreds of golden fist marks, all of which were aimed at the white-haired old man who was holding the shield just now. The old man's speed was not so fast, but his strength was quite high. At this time, he was able to take Han Fei's blow. Han Fei knew that he must be from the Yang family. At this moment, the old man took out a big shield and held a big axe in his other hand. Han Fei roared, full of fighting spirit. The golden giant stepped in the air, creating ripples that shook the surrounding area. God of War possession. The old man also roared, and his body bulged explosively. All the muscles in his body bulged to the point that his fighting spirit was soaring. 100-meter-tall giant appeared in the sky. On one side was a 100-meter-tall giant, and on the other side was a golden giant more than 30 meters tall. It seemed that the gap was a bit big. However, as soon as the two sides collided, countless people in the Thousand-Star City exclaimed. The 100-meter-tall giant slashed out a shocking axe light. And Han Fei met it with his fists, and golden ripples shook the surrounding area. After 3 punches, everyone saw the difference. The 100-meter-tall giant was destroyed by Han Fei's 7 punches. And the old man, every time he collided with Han Fei, blood would splatter in the sky. Bam! At the 8th punch, the big axe in the old man's hand was actually shattered by Han Fei's terrifying power. The old man's arm also exploded on the spot. His only barrier was the big shield. Thud, thud, thud like twinkling stars, in the blink of an eye, hundreds of golden fist marks hit the giant shield. And the old man behind the shield had already been shattered by this terrifying power. Fuse. Han Fei glanced around, grabbed the shield with one hand, and slashed at the void with the other, cutting a piece of flesh and blood. Kacha! The crack reappeared, indicating that the old man had died again. Ren Tianfei's voice shook again. Yang Yu, the ancestor of the Yang family in the Thousand-Star City, a peak-level advanced venerable, has died. At this moment, the Thousand-Star City exploded. How long has it been since Han Fei showed up? 4 venerables had died in a row. And they were all advanced venerables. Wow, so strong. Is this Han Fei? Is this the Han Fei who was almost cornered by the big clans in the Thousand-Star City? On the major islands of the Thousand-Star City, countless people shouted in shock, Marshal Han is invincible, Marshal Han is invincible. Someone shouted, kill the big clans and revitalize the human race. In the Heavenly Sword sect, on the top of the mountain, on an ancient tree, a woman in white looked up at the sky with a complicated expression. If Han Fei were here, he would definitely recognize her. Who else could she be but Luo Xiaobai? Next to Luo Xiaobai, her father Luo Tianhe was also watching this scene and said, I really don't know how this person grew up. It's too terrifying. After thousands of years, the Thousand-Star City is finally going to have another super strong master. Chapter 1637. 4 venerables had fallen in a row. Han Fei's strength was undoubtedly recognized by everyone in the Thousand-Star City. Those who died were all venerables, not cabbages. How long had it been since the sky curtain appeared and Han Fei came out? In such a short period of time, 4 peak-level venerables had fallen. Even an idiot knew that the Thousand-Star City was going to change. Pure Sun Island, the Su family. At this moment, everyone in the Su family looked up at the sky. Su Yang, the current leader of the Su family, was crying with joy. He knew that the glory day of the Su family was coming. Su Yang murmured, Ancestor, you won the bet, outside the Thousand-Star City. On the scattered stars island, on the streets of the City of Justice, on the windows and roofs of the clubs, at the gates of the refining hall. Pedestrians all stopped what they were doing. When the first crack appeared, the people on the road were already in an uproar. Someone shouted, Marshal Han has ascended to the sky and is about to kill the venerables. Someone gulped down wine and laughed loudly. Cool. I'm not convinced by anyone but Marshal Han. He ascended to the sky and killed the venerables. How domineering. In just a moment, when the second crack appeared, hundreds of millions of people were in an uproar. On the scattered stars island, there were shouts everywhere. Good. Good kill. I'm afraid only Marshal Han can achieve this speed. In the 36 towns. The people widened their eyes and looked at the sky. Some people were praying, and some were shouting. Almost all the academies in the 36 towns and the teachers were shouting, cultivate. Hurry up. Sit cross-legged and don't think too much. Marshal Han once said that when a venerable dies, the blood rain contains an inexplicable power that can help people make breakthroughs. In the Blue Sea town. All the businesses of the fish dragons didn't open for business today. Li Gang organized 3,000 members and prayed for Han Fei to return victoriously. No one could say anything wrong with the fish dragon's decision. Han Fei was the leader of the fish dragons. Up to now, Li Gang was just an agent and a deputy leader. If it weren't for Han Fei, he would have been killed long ago. In the Heavenly Water Village. The old village leader was lying on a chair, looking up at the sky, with a smile on his face. You have to win. Our village has only produced a peerless genius like you, so you must win. Before the first one died, Han Fei felt a large amount of power of wish pouring into his body. It seemed that everything he did on the scattered stars island and the 36 towns was beginning to work. Some began to pray for their victory. When the first one died, Han Fei felt the power of faith suddenly increased by more than 30%. When the second one died, the power of will increased by twofold. The third one, the fourth one, the power of faith surged like tides, drilling into Han Fei's heart. At this moment, Han Fei had killed 4 in a row. Because Han Fei's battle speed was too fast and fierce, most people were killed by Han Fei before they had time to react. Trapped in the Blade Edge Purgatory, Sun Xiaotian roared, "Old Monster Chu, do you want to see us die? Hurry up and attack." However, Han Fei sneered. I'm not the only one. I thought you came to ambush me willingly. I also want to say that if you take the initiative to kill me, I may consider it and be a little lenient to your family. It turns out that you are unwilling. Humph. Who told you that old monster Chu can save you? At this moment, Han Fei's Blade Edge Purgatory had shrunk to a radius of 1 kilometer. At this moment, Sun Xiaotian roared, Han Fei, don't force me to explode. Crush the area within 3,000 kilometers, and then the people will be plunged into misery and suffering. Han Fei curled his lips and said, explode? Who gave you the illusion that you can explode in front of me? Huh? Sun Xiaotian was about to trigger himself to explode quickly. The Sun family was the first to become enemies with Han Fei. It could be said that they grew up with Han Fei. So, they wanted Han Fei to let them go. That was almost impossible. At this time, the only thing Sun Xiaotian could do was to preserve his dignity. At least, he couldn't die casually like the others. But how could Han Fei let him do that? How much damage would it cause if a venerable blew himself up? Although someone could protect him, Han Fei didn't want the venerable to blow himself up. He still needed to absorb the divine souls of these people. In this short moment, Han Fei's void lines hadn't stopped and was devouring crazily. The power of Han Fei's soul had been enhanced by more than 5,000 points. Knife, come. Han Fei stepped into the Blade Edge Purgatory, covering 1,000 kilometers with one step, and grabbed the void as a knife. As he slashed out, the void collapsed, and while hundreds of millions of knife lights rushed into the deity-slaying sword formation, Han Fei's knife had already pressed into Sun Xiaotian's head. Huh! Han Fei swallowed a large amount of energy in one gulp. With a flip of his hand, he took out the embroidery needle and blew up the wisp of soul. Boom! So far, 5 of the grandmasters of the big families had died in a row. Another person took the opportunity to escape. If he hadn't escaped quickly, he would have become the 6th person. Ren Tianfen's voice sounded again, Sun Xiaotian, an advanced venerable of the Sun family of the Thousand Star City, has died. Ren Tianfen's voice was like thunder. But in the ears of the hundreds of millions of people in the Thousand Star City, it was so shocking and ethereal, as if someone was talking about a heavenly book. Someone gasped crazily. He killed 5 venerables in a row. And the most powerful ones? He killed all the super strong masters that I've never heard of. In the Sun family's younger generation, there was no longer any exceptional heavens chosen that they could bring out. After hearing the news of Sun Xiaotian's death, they were all grieved. In the Yang family, Yang Nanshi almost went crazy. Bastard Han Fei. He killed my ancestor. I will never forgive him. Yang Diyu grabbed Yang Nanshi, who was in a crazy state. He had been beaten more than a dozen times. Yang Diyu roared, "That's enough. Stop it. Who the hell do you think you are? You can't even stand a finger of Han Fei's." Yang Nanshi howled, "I'll smash him to death with my hammer. Don't you dare." An old man from the Yang family stood up and berated loudly, "Yang Nanshi, you better remember this. Now, the most important thing is to save your lives. Han Fei is a vengeful person. However, the higher his status is, the less likely he will attack you. Remember, no matter what happens, don't mess with him." In the Yi family, Yi Baiyu clenched his fists. Today, the big families of the Thousand Star City only existed in name. The top venerables had fallen. How could a big family still be called a big family? In front of him, there was a strange book called Heavenly Illusionary Divine Rock Secret Technique. It was said that those who practiced this technique would become extremely powerful. However, because this technique was still in the exploratory stage, it was very likely that they would turn into a bird. Of course, this was just a rumor. After all, most of the ancestors of the Yi family who practiced this technique died suddenly. However, Yi Baiyu took a deep breath. Being a human or a bird, isn't it all cultivation? As long as you become the strongest and become a half-human half-bird monster, what can you do? In the Qin family, Qin Aochen said excitedly, "Why does the ancestor of the Qin family have to get involved in this matter? Han Fei obviously can't be treated with common sense. Now that our ancestor failed, the consequences can be seen." Someone sighed. "Do you think the Qin family can do anything? We are recognized as a big family. The Sun family and other big families are going to hold a joint meeting. Do you think the Qin family should participate or not?" The man let out a long sigh. It seems that Han Fei is not only going to suppress the Thousand Star City, but he is also going to sweep the Thousand Star City. The entire Yin Yang heaven was discussing, shocked, and looking forward to what Han Fei was going to do next. Ren Tianfei said, "The one who just ran away, Chen Long of the Qin family." The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. Oh. It turns out to be a member of the Qin family. No wonder he ran away as soon as he found something wrong. Han Fei shouted, "All the big families in the Thousand Star City, except for the Chu sect, listen to me. Prepare all the resources in your family and wait in your family. I'll send people to pick them up one by one. In addition, all the people above the law enforcer level are on standby at home. In the future, go to war with me and redeem your freedom with military exploits. My orders can be supervised by everyone. Those who disobey will be killed without mercy." After giving a casual order, Han Fei was already standing in front of the mountain protecting array of the Chu sect. There weren't many people on the island, and those who could escape were all fleeing. Through the array, Han Fei looked at Old Monster Chu, who was sitting cross-legged, and smiled contemptuously. "Old Monster Chu, do you still want to inherit the bloodline of the Chu sect? If you do, then kill yourself. I can bestow death upon all of you and treat your clan's descendants well." There were 7 venerables in the Chu sect, but now there were only 6 left, including Old Monster Chu. Among them, Old Monster Chu was already a pseudo-king. Although King Chu had died, there was still 1 junior peak-level venerable, 3 middle-level venerables, and 1 advanced peak-level venerable. If old Monster Chu wasn't included, the combat power of these 5 people was enough. Han Fei was now confident that he could end the battle within 2 minutes against these 5 people. The Venerable Realm was powerful, but there were also strong and weak people. It was no different from other realms. If you mastered the Great Tao, others could master it too. If you were strong, others were stronger. After all, I crushed you in all aspects. How could you survive? Han Fei wasn't in a hurry. He stood in the void and looked at old Monster Chu quietly. After a long time, old Monster Chu slowly stepped into the sky and looked at Han Fei. Do you know how many venerables there are in the 1,000-star city? Han Fei shook his head with a smile. I don't know. Old Monster Chu said, as of a moment ago, there were 28 people left. You killed 5 of them alone. Han Fei's lips curled. Really? Old Monster Chu said, there are 6 people in the Chu sect including me. The Chao family also has 6 people. Except for the 7 major sects. Well, there's no one left. Han Fei tilted his head and said, so? Old Monster Chu looked at Han Fei coldly. That's all the foundation of this world, but it was almost all destroyed by you. Well. Just to pursue your so-called freedom. Chapter 1638. Han Fei looked at old Monster Chu as if he were an idiot. I'm very curious about one thing, and I really don't understand. Why do so many of you take it for granted that it's you venerables who support this world? It seems that without you, this world can't live on. Old Monster Chu narrowed his eyes. It's only natural that the strong support the world. Hee hee, Han Fei couldn't help but sneer. Ignorant people are fearless. If you knew about the situation in the cage, I wonder if you would still have the face to be so proud here. Han Fei looked at old Monster Chu seriously and said, now I know why we are completely on the opposite side. Old Monster Chu asked, why? Han Fei sneered. Because you are arrogant, because you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth, because you are too stupid. For people like you, even if there is no eye of the heavenly path in this world, even if this cage doesn't restrict you from becoming kings. Even if you become kings, none of you will become a powerful king. You are too narrow-minded. At this moment, Han Fei was a little relieved. Perhaps, this was the drawback of the ancient families. They were arrogant and thought they were the strongest in the world, but they were just frogs in a well. Han Fei believed that not all families were as stupid as them. Han Fei didn't bother to argue with old Monster Chu. He pointed his sword at old Monster Chu and shouted in a low voice, all the venerables of the Chu sect will die today. None of them can escape. From hidden fissures to explorers, all the members of the Chu sect will be exiled. Old Monster Chu sneered. I'd like to see. How can you, a mere peak-level advanced venerable, destroy the Chu sect today? Han Fei laughed and said loudly, among the 7 major sects, is there anyone who is willing to stay? Just stop the other venerables of the Chu sect before I come back. When I come back, I'll kill them myself. Cough, cough, suddenly, the Heavenly Sword ancestor of the Heavenly Sword sect said, a year ago, old Monster Chu attacked my sect. Now, although I haven't fully recovered, it's not a problem to kill a mere advanced venerable. Download the Mimi reading app and read books for free forever. In the Sea Cloud restaurant, Fairy Huiyu stepped out of the void. Only one early-stage supremacy of the Fire Moon sect can remain. A big sword from the Grand Void Academy swept across the sky and came straight at them. The Jade Fairy Palace had an icy kiss, swaying in the void and crossing the vast sky. Boom! People from the Death Door sect and the Mountain Sea Pavilion broke through the Ceiling Mountains formation and crossed the void. At this point, Han Fei came to the 1,000-star city alone. Was there no one else he could use? Of course not. Why did Han Fei shout like that? He was just trying to get people to pick a side. The 7 major sects were united. Now Han Fei had risen unstoppably. If he didn't do it now, there would be no future. With Han Fei's ruthless methods and vengeful personality. Today. Which family dared to not send someone? Which school would be removed from the 7 great sects? The Zhang family's venerable, the only one with foresight. At this moment, he heaved a long sigh. Even if they attack now, Han Fei didn't appreciate their kindness at all. But fortunately, on the last day, they didn't oppose Han Fei. Although Zhang Sun didn't know who would win. Or was Old Monster Chu stronger? But, in terms of potential, Old Monster Chu was far worse than Han Fei. Han Fei's growth was miraculous. This kind of miracle, it shouldn't exist at all. At the moment when Han Fei killed King Chu. In fact, the big families, they already knew that Han Fei was invincible. However, the other families didn't have the confidence of the Zhang family. Could Old Monster Chu force the other families? But he couldn't force the Zhang family. Because even Old Monster Chu knew that the Zhang family would fight to the death. The whole human world would be in trouble. Anyway, Old Monster Chu didn't lack an advanced venerable, so he didn't force them. In fact, in addition to these big families, other families such as the Wang family, where Wang Zitian was from, also had a peak-level junior venerable. There were only 3 such families in the entire Yin-Yang heaven. Old Monster Chu didn't care about the strength of a peak-level junior venerable. At this critical moment, Old Monster Chu had no time to care about them. They should thank God that they didn't come to the Chu's sect for protection. According to Han Fei's personality, except for the 7 major sects, all the big families with venerables were his targets. The Chu's sect was the same, the Chao family was the same, and those small families were the same. At this moment, all the masters of the 7 major sects had come out. In the void, there was still a sound, but Star Tortoise had also come to the 1,000-star city. Star Tortoise shouted, Han Fei, I'm here to help you fight. Han Fei didn't even look up. Mr. Shui, Old Chen, please count the big families in the 1,000-star city. Han Fei's voice shook. All the big families with explorers in the 1,000-star city, listen to me and register them. In the end, I will make a decision after I return victorious. Ha, you can hope that I won't come back. Then Han Fei said, Star Tortoise, it's time for you to fight. There happens to be a gap of mid-level venerables in the Chu sect. You can fill it. When Han Fei made these orders, Old Monster Chu didn't stop him. In the Chu sect, Han Fei's former opponent, Chu Qingyan, had a complicated expression. She didn't choose to leave because she knew she couldn't. Han Fei must remember her. She wanted to bet on whether or not Han Fei would protect his identity and not attack her. However, when she saw all this in her clan, she sighed inexplicably. Once, she even thought that Han Fei was no match for her at all. But the fact was that she was slapped in the face again and again. When Han Fei was still a law enforcer, he could easily defeat her. All these years, she had been cultivating like a madman, and she was blessed with great luck. However, her strength was only that of an advanced explorer. This was already extremely fast, and it had only been 13 years. However, the gap between her and Han Fei was getting wider and wider, so wide that she suspected that Han Fei might not even remember her. Old Monster Chu had been waiting since Han Fei said he was going to kill the king today. No matter how many things Han Fei did, as long as he died in the end, it would all be meaningless. Old Monster Chu was waiting for Han Fei to rise to the peak, waiting for Han Fei to be so arrogant that he thought he could definitely win. At this moment, Han Fei reached out and grabbed, and the infinity water returned. Old Monster Chu nodded slightly, and the venerables of the Chu sect took action one after another. Even if they died, they were still members of the Chu sect, and the dignity of the Chu sect was inviolable. The mountain protecting array of the Chu sect was melting, and Old Monster Chu stepped in the air, leaving ripples. Hiss, hiss. The next moment, Han Fei saw a weird green worm that was hundreds of meters long and looked like a centipede. It arched its body, and thousands of tentacles hooked. Information emerged in Han Fei's mind. Name: Amun will leech. Introduction: Amun will leech, a special creature in ancient times, has the divine skill of eating time. After swallowing a certain amount of moonlight, the moon will leech can activate the time spell, throw the world into chaos, and make the fighters fall into the time domain. Level 89 Equality Ancient Remnant Species Path Time Effect Inedible Collectible Unabsorbable Remarks As long as the moonlight is not extinguished, the domain is unbreakable. When Han Fei saw this information, suddenly, the eyes of the moon will leech burst out with a bright green light. This worm turned out to realize the domain conversion by light. The next moment, over the Thousand-Star City, Han Fei and Old Monster Chu disappeared without a trace at the same time. The sky-hanging mirror also lost its function, and people could no longer see Han Fei through it. Han Fei felt the scene in front of him change. This was a strange domain wrapped in time. Han Fei could see a lot of blue halos flowing outside the domain. If it weren't for the fact that they flowed very slowly, Han Fei would have suspected that he had entered the river of time. The old turtle said, "Not good. This worm has forcibly changed the timeline and isolated you from the world you were in just now. In this case, if you want to break this space, you must kill this old monster Chu. Otherwise, as long as the time is not broken, you can't get out." Opposite Han Fei, Old Monster Chu looked at Han Fei coldly. "From now on, no one can help you anymore. If you die, the Thousand-Star City will still be the Thousand-Star City, and I will still be the strongest person in the Thousand-Star City. The glory of the Chu sect will continue." Han Fei curled his lips and smiled. "I have to admire you. You are the only person I know who can use the Great Way to this extent in the Venerable Realm. However, if you think pulling me into an independent domain is all you've prepared, then I can only say that you are digging your own grave." The next moment, Han Fei activated the Great Way, and his aura soared. In all directions, there was the blade Purgatory. In his hand was the sequeling bizarre needle. Han Fei grinned hideously. "As it happens, I haven't fought a real fake king head-on. You can have a try." "Cut the crap." Old Monster Chu didn't want to give Han Fei time. He shook his hands and two swords appeared in his hands. Swish! 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 The two swords slashed, and 3,000 sword shadows bloomed like a lotus flower, sweeping in all directions. Old Monster Chu's swords broke through the air, and the sword energy was profound. He was going to kill Han Fei directly. Seeing the layers of sword light, Han Fei thought to himself, Old Monster Chu's move is even stronger than Sun Xiaotian's Immortals Slaying formation. Bam, however, Han Fei grinned and said, "I have many methods to test with you one by one. Take 2 punches from me first." The 2 sacrificing punches were just the appetizer. Wherever the fist mark passed, the fist mark would stir up the energy of the void, bringing with it a majestic force of the void as it blasted forward. Old Monster Chu sneered. "I know that you are not affected by the Great Way of Time. But so what? It can't affect you, but it can't affect your attack, right?" Old Monster Chu didn't make much effort, and there seemed to be something wrong with the time in front of him. Han Fei's sacrificing punches were dissolving when he passed through that area. The old turtle said, "He used time to corrode your power." Han Fei roared and 100 beasts devoured the soul. Because he didn't have to worry about being seen, the 100 beast phantoms stepped on the void. Let's see. How many great techniques can you effect? Chapter 1639. In the Thousand-Star City, when Han Fei and Old Monster Chu disappeared, even Ren Tianfei exclaimed in shock. Peaceful, who had been rushing to protect Han Fei, saw this scene and directly appeared in the place where Han Fei disappeared. Then, Peaceful's face changed drastically and she looked at Ren Tianfei. "Where are they?" Ren Tianfei's clone also frowned. "I can't find them either. Wait for me." As soon as Ren Tianfei spoke, a scholarly middle-aged man walked slowly toward them. Who else could it be but Han Guanshu? Peaceful's eyelids twitched. "Your son is gone. I can't sense it at all." Han Guanshu said, "Old Monster Chu's spiritual beast is called the Moon Will Leech, which has the ability to leave the current timeline for a short time. That is to say, They are not in this world now. Hiss, Ren Tianfei and Peaceful both gasped. What do you mean by not in this world? He can even change the timeline. How can there be such a weird spiritual beast in this world? Ren Tianfei looked at Han Guanshu in surprise. You don't panic at all? Han Guanshu grinned. Panic? He is going to become a king. How can a king be defeated by a fake king? Peaceful added, but he is only a peak-level advanced venerable now. He hasn't even reached the peak of the venerable realm yet. Han Guanshu smiled. He is too concerned. His experience is enough for him to deal with all this. In the field of time. Han Fei's 100 Beasts Soul Devourer. This kind of soul attack couldn't shake old Monster Chu at all. This guy had cast a time spell on him. The old turtle said, he has extended the distance of sound transmission without limit. As a result, he can't hear it at all. Han Fei was stunned. Could a time spell be used in this way? But fortunately, he could still bombard old Monster Chu head-on. Bam! 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 Clang! 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 After only 10 minutes, old Monster Chu was already defeated. He found that Han Fei's power was beyond his imagination. How could a peak-level advanced venerable have more than 30,000 waves of super strength? Even though old Monster Chu had lived for almost 5,000 years, his strength had reached the limit. However, even if he failed the tribulation and became a fake king, his strength would only be more than 21,000 waves. He was no match for Han Fei at all. Damn it, they were not on the same level at all. Fortunately, he had the Tao of Time to delay Han Fei's power. After all, the power that Han Fei exerted would diminish with distance and time. Otherwise, with Han Fei's pure strength, even old Monster Chu would be defeated. At this moment, Han Fei also realized that old Monster Chu could still persist under his power. It must be because of the time barrier on him. But how could he break through the barrier of time? Han Fei roared, this place is forbidden. However, this time, this trick didn't work. Old Monster Chu sneered. This is my time domain. How can your spell work? Han Fei chuckled. If you're so capable, why don't you break my other techniques? In an instant, Han Fei knew that the reason why his forbidden technique didn't work, was probably because he was not in the normal timeline at all. This was equivalent to being in a parallel dimension. He was not sure which dimension he was in. Forbidden spell, which dimension was it? Of course, he couldn't be sure. Seeing that this trick didn't work, Han Fei changed the Great Path of Heavenly Opening to the Great Path of Gravity. Even though old Monster Chu had changed time himself, Han Fei was very sure that old Monster Chu was under the same restriction as him. It was just that his own Great Path was time. Therefore, when Han Fei used the Great Path of Gravity, the irregular gravity directly disrupted old Monster Chu's rhythm. Boom! At the moment when the Great Path of Gravity came into play, Han Fei grabbed the embroidery needle and struck out with the Heaven Gate. Puff! The Heaven Gate condensed space and time into a stick, which happened to deal with old Monster Chu's time barrier and smashed half of old Monster Chu's body. Once there was a weakness, Han Fei seized the opportunity. When the time domain around old Monster Chu was unstable, the embroidery needle struck again. However, this time, Han Fei used the Heavenly God Spike, which pierced straight into the soul. Bam! Old Monster Chu's Great Path collapsed. Han Fei twisted the void and appeared in front of old Monster Chu in an instant. Bam! 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 In the blink of an eye, the two collided thousands of times, and old Monster Chu's body was smashed. Han Fei clenched the void lines, but old Monster Chu's figure appeared there. The old turtle said, he rewrote his own time. Knowing that he would face great danger in the next moment, he consumed a lot of the power of time in advance and returned to the peak state a moment ago. Seeing that the old turtle was covered with another layer of time barrier, Han Fei immediately sneered, Old Monster Chu, this technique of rewriting time must consume a lot of energy, right? But my Great Path of Gravity doesn't consume much energy. Let's see how long you can last. Like a game of cat and mouse, Han Fei clearly realized the horror of the time technique. In a sense, as long as he completely controlled the great path of time, he was almost immortal. Even if he knew he was going to die in the next second, he could return to the state where he hadn't died. This kind of mystical power was simply a bug. Han Fei didn't think it should exist. After 100 minutes, Han Fei felt that his power of the great path could only last for another 100 minutes at most. If he still couldn't take down old monster Chu in 100 minutes, he would have to find a way to temporarily enter Forge the universe to recover. A great path that can ignore time and rules and directly crush the opponent. Suddenly, Han Fei couldn't help but curse, I really forgot such an important thing. I still have the supreme yin-yang wheel. When the yin-yang painting appeared, old monster Chu was shocked. What kind of technique is this? Why do you have this kind of inheritance? From old monster Chu's words, it seemed that he knew something. But now, Han Fei was full of killing intent and had consumed 10 wisps of the chaotic energy in his body. The battle had been in the most fervent state. If it weren't for the secret technique of time that saved old monster Chu time and time again, old monster Chu would have been smashed into pieces by him. Puchi. Seeing that the supreme yin-yang will strangled into old monster Chu's time barrier, Han Fei secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Sure enough, a false king was actually not much stronger than a half-king. It was just that after being tempered by part of the heavenly tribulation, he had a deeper understanding of the great path. The overall quality of his body had also become stronger. This difference created the illusion that a false king was stronger than a half-king, but in fact, it was not. At this moment, old monster Chu blocked with 2 knives, but the 2 knives were immediately covered with cracks. Han Fei took the opportunity to merge the infinity water into old monster Chu's body. Sure enough, in the next moment, old monster Chu disappeared and appeared in another place. However, looking at old monster Chu's gloomy face, he seemed to be waiting for Han Fei's power to fade. The two of them had their own plans, but Han Fei suddenly grinned. I just thought that if you completely reverse time, where would my things be? I didn't expect that my things would reverse time with you. Huh? Old monster Chu's face suddenly changed. He seemed to realize something and was about to reverse time again. But the inside of his body suddenly exploded. Rumble, the terrifying explosion directly blew old monster Chu into dust. After all, not everyone could have an indestructible golden body as powerful and durable as Han Fei's. At the moment when old monster Chu exploded, Han Fei controlled the supreme yin-yang wheel. In an instant, it fused with little black and little white. He glanced with the yin-yang divine eyes and immediately saw a soul radiance releasing a large amount of energy in the void. Humph, I'll make it impossible for you to come back to life. Let's see how you can reverse time. Chilla. Han Fei drew out a knife from the void, and a space crack was cut out by Han Fei. After this slash, another soul fragment appeared. Han Fei aimed the void lines at one of the soul fragments and clasped it. Huh. The 100-beast soul devourer was activated. Bam! The heaven-knocking gate appeared in his hand again. This time, the real explosion directly blasted countless holes in this time domain. At this moment, Han Fei felt that the void lines and the power of the soul were returning to his body. At this moment, Han Fei grinned, released the power of the great path, and his body slightly softened. Huh! Han Fei took a long breath of energy, and the time around him gradually changed. Although the location of the battle was exactly the same, the environment of the 2 different times and the people on the island could still be distinguished. Boom! At that moment, above the sky, a huge crack of the great path directly spanned the north and south of the 1,000-star city. The 36 towns. Scattered Stars Island. When everyone saw this incomparably huge crack of the great path, they all exclaimed, "Who on earth has fallen? How come the celestial phenomenon is so terrifying?" In the outside world, as soon as Han Fei appeared, he saw Han Guanshu, Ren Tianfen, peaceful, and Li Daxian waiting. On the other side, old Jiang, Old Bai, and the others were also on their way, and some had just appeared in the Thousand-Star City. However, they never expected that Han Fei's battle would end so quickly. At that moment, Han Fei looked at Han Guanshu. "How about leaving the rest of the time to me?" Han Guanshu nodded slightly and glanced at Peaceful and Ren Tianfen. "Let's go." Li Daxian muttered, "No wonder he's a disciple of the Thug Academy. He's indeed powerful." When they all left, the sky curtain opened again. After more than 10 minutes, the sky curtain opened again. When Han Fei's figure appeared in front of the hundreds of millions of people in the Thousand-Star City, the entire Thousand-Star City burst into a tsunami of cheers. At that moment, Han Fei grinned and said, "I declare that the Chu sect will be destroyed today." Chapter 1640. The destruction of the Chu sect was not only the destruction of a family, but also the end of an era. Han Fei hadn't fought against a pseudo-king before, so he didn't know how strong a pseudo-king was. However, after the battle with Old Monster Chu, he knew the combat power of a pseudo-king and how strong he was. Two kings' tribulations were 2 times where his flesh and blood were separated. He didn't pay these prices for nothing. Every experience seemed to be devastating, but in fact, it made Han Fei stronger. From this moment on, Han Fei didn't dare to say that he was invincible under the King realm, but in the entire Yin-Yang heaven, Waterwood heaven, or the cage, only the 3 kings could continue to suppress him. At this moment, Han Fei stood proudly in the sky and scanned the entire Thousand-Star City with his perception. In the countless cheers, Han Fei inexplicably felt greatly relieved. This was a special feeling. Victory? Or the realization of hope? This was a completely different feeling from when he took over Yu City. Yu City, that was Shiman Linglan's era, Shiman Linglan's dream. And the Thousand-Star City was his era. Phew, Han Fei let out a long breath, only to feel that a majestic power of hope was pouring into his body. In addition to the power of hope, Han Fei felt that a stone in his heart had been lifted. Since he entered the Thug Academy, he was destined to oppose the big families. Until today, the big families were at the end of the road. And his strategic layout in the Thousand-Star City could be said to have been fully achieved. Han Fei felt that his state of mind had changed greatly, as if his whole person had been sublimated in an instant. At this moment, Han Fei deeply felt the opportunity to make a breakthrough. This surprised Han Fei very much. Deep down, he desperately wanted to make a breakthrough, but his body was clearly not in its peak state. Should he make a breakthrough now? Would it affect his foundation? Han Fei said, "Old Yuan, what if I make a breakthrough now?" The old turtle said, "Logically speaking, there should be no difference. Your problem is not whether to make a breakthrough or not. Your problem is that your body is not coordinated. In theory, of course, it's more appropriate to make a breakthrough after your body is coordinated." Hearing the old turtle's words, Han Fei suppressed the urge to make a breakthrough. In the sky, in the eyes of the outsiders, there was only a moment of silence. At this moment, everyone was still immersed in the wave of cheers, unable to extricate themselves. Therefore, they didn't even notice that Han Fei paused for a second. Han Fei said, "Fellow human beings, please wait for a few days. Wait for the people from the Scattered Stars Island and the major families to finish counting. In a few days, the channel from the Thousand-Star City to the Scattered Stars Island and the 36 towns will be fully opened. Everyone, a new era, an era of freedom, an era that belongs to you, is coming. Roar! Commander Han, Commander Han, Commander Han is righteous." In fact, many people knew about the City of Justice. After all, many people from the Thousand-Star City were also on the Scattered Stars Island. Therefore, many people, especially the cultivators at the bottom of society, were filled with anticipation for the future. In the midst of the revelry, Han Fei's voice sounded leisurely, "But before that, I still have something to do." Yu Zun of the Chu sect could not atone for his crimes even if he died 100 times. "I can spare the others, but I won't spare any of the Chu sect's venerables." Han Fei's voice was resolute. As soon as he said this, all the venerables and explorers in the Thousand-Star City took a breath. Han Fei had already killed Old Monster Chu and was invincible in the Thousand Star City. At a time like this, leaving one more venerable alive was equivalent to having one more combat power. How could Han Fei kill them so casually? Wasn't he too bloodthirsty? Even Ren Tianfei said to him via voice transmission, "Have you killed too many? Do you want to spare a few? If something happens in the future, there will still be people to help." Han Fei sneered. "I don't need these venerables." With that, Han Fei stepped into the void. After a moment, boom, boom, within 100 minutes, another 5 venerables died. As Han Fei said, none of the Chu sect's venerables were spared. Han Fei's domineering means directly frightened the remnants of all the big clans in the Thousand Star City. All the big clans seemed to have lost their backbone and all hid in their homes. They were just waiting for Han Fei to send someone to recruit them. The venerables of the Chu sect were killed without mercy. At this critical moment, who dared to stand up for them? Wasn't that courting death? But the ordinary people in the Thousand Star City didn't feel this way. At this time, they were very happy. After all, they had never been the masters of this city. It wasn't until Han Fei appeared that they regained their freedom. What did the venerables have to do with ordinary people? For a long time, the big clans like the Chu sect had monopolized the massive resources of the Thousand Star City. The Thousand Star Proving Ground was monopolized by the Chu sect, and many people didn't even have the opportunity to take the test because they had no money. At this moment, Han Fei had killed the Chu sect for them. Did this mean that they wouldn't have to pay for these things in the future? In fact, these ordinary people even thought that even if they had to pay, they didn't have to pay as much as before. And at this moment, Han Fei killed 5 venerables in a row. Since today, he had killed 11 venerables in a row. Even in the last full-scale war with the sea demons, this was the number of venerables that died. However, Han Fei had killed so many venerables in the Thousand Star City in one day. And Han Fei was overjoyed. His current soul power had reached 114 points. In less than a month, his soul power had increased by more than 10,000 points. This was all because he had slaughtered these venerables. At this moment, Han Fei had a huge amount of resources in his hands, especially the sun moon shells he found from Old Monster Chu, which numbered as many as 20. Among them, one of the sun moon shells stored the star beads controlled by the Chu sect. Only then did Han Fei remember that Luo Xiaobai said that Old Monster Chu was able to become a half-king probably because he went to the Thousand Star Proving Ground, and the 9 star beads in the Thousand Star Proving Ground corresponded to the Venerable Realm. Han Fei looked at the star tortoise and said, "Go to the Scattered Stars Island and inform the inspectors. All the explorers on the Scattered Stars Island to come and clean up the big clans. If anyone resists, kill them." The word "kill" startled the star tortoise. At this moment, the star tortoise was very sure that Han Fei was a killer. Han Fei completely treated it as his subordinate. However, of course, the star tortoise didn't dare to say anything. He quickly said, "Okay, leave it to me." After a while, Han Fei appeared in the sky again. This time, Han Fei shouted, "I, Han Fei, now order all the big clans in the Thousand Star City to hand over the star beads of the Thousand Star Proving Ground. Including the 7 major sects, including the Chao family. Hand over all the star beads. The star beads of the Thug Academy will also be handed over. In the future, these resources will be provided to the citizens of the Thousand Star City for free." Wow! Huh! Almighty Marshal Han. Marshal Han is really the savior of the human race. Son of a bitch, look. This is a real strong man. This is the leader of the human race. He's really different. Someone exclaimed. Sure enough, Han Fei has provided the star beads for free. Han Fei chuckled. My fellow compatriots, although the star beads are free to try, there are only so many star beads in total. Therefore, I will arrange for someone to examine each star bead. According to the difficulty of the star bead and the number of people who can bear it, the star beads will be given out in moderation. I also encourage you to go out of the thousand-star city and see the vastness of the outside world. Go to the Scattered Stars Island. It may be 100 times more interesting than the trials in the star beads. In fact, needless to say, the passage leading to the Scattered Stars Island had long been crowded with people. Many people had been longing to go to the Scattered Stars Island for a long time. However, according to the admission rules of the Scattered Stars Island, the number of people approved every day was too small. Seeing this scene, Han Fei immediately said, "Don't worry. You can wait at home for a few days. I will immediately arrange for the teleportation array from the 36 towns to the Thousand-Star City. The Scattered Stars Island is limited, but there are plenty of places in the 36 towns. You can just take it as a sightseeing trip. In the future, no one will stop you again. However, remember not to stir up trouble. Otherwise, I won't let you off easily." Someone laughed. "That's not possible. We are not the kind of people who make trouble." Someone's face was flushed. "How comfortable. I didn't expect to see the Thousand-Star City being opened in my lifetime." Someone sighed. "I have to go to the 36 towns one by one to see what the different places are like." In the laughter of these people, Han Fei said, "Okay, I hope you can spread the news of the Battle of the Thousand-Star City far and wide. I want to spread my thoughts to more people. Now, the battle has just ended, and there are a lot of things waiting to be done. I still have a lot of things to deal with, so I won't say much to you here. Bye." Han Fei's casual attitude infected too many people. The entire Thousand-Star City went crazy. Han Fei only felt the power of wish surging, wave after wave. In addition to the Thousand-Star City, the people of the 36 towns and the people of the Scattered Stars Island should also be frantically providing power of wish. The people of the Thousand-Star City naturally knew that Han Fei was very busy. Although the big clans had been destroyed, only their venerables had died. These big clans still had so many islands under their rule, so many industries, so many resources, and so many new arrangements must be made for them. Han Fei could be said to be the supreme commander of the Yin-Yang Heaven now. If he didn't care about these things, who would care about them? Therefore, everyone understood Han Fei's decision to go to work. However, these people didn't know that Han Fei came to the Heavenly Sword sect as soon as possible. On the top of the Sword Chi mountain of the Heavenly Sword sect, Han Fei smiled and walked to Luo Xiaobai, who was dressed in white. At this moment, Luo Xiaobai was no longer a young girl, but a cold and wise girl. Seeing Han Fei's usual smile, Luo Xiaobai rolled her eyes. What a shame. Chapter 1641. What Han Fei hated most was dealing with all kinds of things. Like Shueishenqi, sitting in the general's mansion for 50 years. Han Fei couldn't do it. For example, as soon as the Thousand-Star City was pacified, Han Fei had a headache when he thought of the mess that would follow. Therefore, his first instinct was to find the most trustworthy person to deal with these matters. Therefore, Luo Xiaobai was hit. At this moment, even Luo Tianhe, Luo Xiaobai's father, had retreated far away. The master of the Heavenly Sword had returned to rest. Mu Tianfang stood in the distance, waiting for Han Fei and Luo Xiaobai to finish talking. Seeing Luo Xiaobai, Han Fei immediately praised, "Wow. She was a big girl now. I almost didn't recognize him." Luo Xiaobai snorted. "Yes, you can kill kings. Of course you can't recognize me." Han Fei smiled awkwardly. "That's not possible. If you have a few more years, I'm afraid I won't be able to kill a king." Han Fei was not joking. Luo Xiaobai's cultivation speed had always been the fastest among everyone. Now was no exception. Under the influence of the ancient seed, Luo Xiaobai's strength had reached the level of an advanced explorer. Would ordinary people even dare to imagine such a cultivation speed? This was potential. Although old Bai and old Jiang might not be strong enough, they used to be from the Yin-Yang Heaven, or the pure Yang Taoist Palace. There were only a few people chosen in the entire Yin-Yang Heaven. How could they be bad? Han Fei said, "Okay. You know, I can fight, but I really can't clean up a mess. Just in time, I have something to tell you. Hey, wait, damn fatty. Han Fei suddenly looked back, only to see Luo Renquang's head sticking out of the void more than 6,000 kilometers away. On the other side, Zhang Xuanyu, the traitor, had also gone to Pure Sun Island. Speechless, Han Fei scanned them with his perception. Hey, where are you two going? We are at the Heavenly Sword Sect. Buzz. Zhang Xuanyu and Lu Renquang were shocked. Zhang Xuanyu asked, why did you go to the Heavenly Sword Sect? Wait for me. I'll be right there. Lu Renquang said, wait for me. A smile also appeared on Luo Xiaobai's cold face. In terms of affection, even her father and brothers were not as good as them. On the other hand, the four of them and Xia Shaochan were really innocent. They had grown up together, so they naturally had different feelings for each other. After a while, as soon as they met, Zhang Xuanyu hugged Han Fei and punched him on the shoulder. Boy, can you kill kings now? I'm going to piss my pants if I say it out loud. Tell me, how exactly did you cultivate? Lu Renquang was also speechless. One person killed 11 in a row. To be honest, I'm too embarrassed to come out now. I really can't afford to lose that face. Zhang Xuanyu heaved a long sigh. It's a pity that I'm only a mid-level explorer. Sigh, the road ahead is long. Han Fei said disdainfully, okay, let's meet again. I have a lot of things that I need to make clear to you, and I need to make them clear right now. Seeing that Han Fei stopped joking, Luo Xiaobai said, take your time. With a thought, Lu Renquang grabbed an advanced explorer-level tortoise, cut the bones, and skillfully peeled the meat. Then, he put the pot on the rack, added the seasoning, and began to cook. It was their habit to eat and chat. Half an hour later, the four of them sat around the stove, listening to Han Fei ramble on and on. Lu Renquang and Zhang Xuanyu kept exclaiming, and Luo Xiaobai's eyes flickered. Obviously, she was also shocked by Han Fei's experience. Zhang Xuanyu asked, so, there are indeed 2 kings in that Shuemu sky? Luo Xiaobai narrowed her eyes and said, but the problem is not the 2 kings of the Shuemu sky. After all, one of the kings can be regarded as one of us, or an ally. However, the Sea Demon King must be an enemy. What I'm more concerned about is the truth of the cage. Are there really as many as 1,000 venerables there? Lu Renquang took a breath and said, it's okay if there are 1,000 venerables. What did you just say? The number of explorers is as many as 1,000,000. I'm not very educated. Don't lie to me. Han Fei looked at Lu Renquang with pity and said, well, I really don't need to lie to you. I'll fight a battle over there and use 300,000 explorers. Lu Renquang, Luo Xiaobai, Zhang Xuanyu said leisurely, what's wrong with this world? In the past, an explorer was already a top-notch existence. Suddenly, one day, you tell me that there are as many as millions of such people in this world? My young heart can't bear it. Luo Xiaobai said, actually, I've expected it. When you talked about the 36 mysterious heavens before, I estimated that the combat power level here should be relatively low. There won't be a lot of strong masters. In such a large territory, there isn't even a king. This is a problem in itself. It's just that we can't improve our strength as quickly as you can. Even if we are given another 10 years, it is estimated that our strength will only be between peak-level explorers or half a venerable. The only advantage of the 3 of us is that we clearly know our own path and the path we want to take. In this respect, we have saved a lot of time. When it came to the path, Han Fei's expression suddenly changed. He said, Xiaobai, can I ask, which generation did your Luo family's divine manipulation technique come from? Luo Xiaobai didn't know why Han Fei asked this question. She also shook her head and said, well, I can also pass it, but no one in the family knows. They only know that this kind of bloodline may be inherited from another generation. As for which generation? I don't know. Han Fei said solemnly, "Now, what I'm going to tell the three of you, you must bear it in mind." Seeing Han Fei's serious expression, the three of them couldn't help but stop eating. Zhang Xuanyu said, "Just say it. Why are you so serious?" Han Fei rolled his eyes at him and said, "The 5 major professions of human cultivation may be problematic in themselves." Luo Xiaobai asked, "What do you mean?" Han Fei immediately told them the old turtle's theory. Han Fei talked about the mutual attraction of the same path. And the 5 major professions were probably passed down by the ancient masters in order to harvest leeks. Otherwise, why were the 5 major professions particularly popular and popular? It seemed that they were really a perfect combination. In fact, the old turtle was not 100% sure about this matter. Needless to say, these 5 major professions were indeed very strong. For example, if a spirit gatherer walked to the end, Han Fei would walk on the Tianqi Great Path. And the Tianqi Great Path was obviously a very high-end great path. Such a great path, among the thousands of races in the sea, might only be possessed by human beings. Then, if he only walked on the Tianqi Great Path in the future and became a king or an emperor, and finally met an emperor who walked on the Tianqi Great Path, he killed him. Wouldn't that be a great loss? After hearing Han Fei's analysis, Luo Xiaobai asked, "Han Fei, do you know the realm above the king?" Han Fei was also stunned, not knowing what Luo Xiaobai wanted to say. However, this matter was not worth hiding. So Han Fei nodded and said, "The king opens the sea, the emperor opens the sky, the emperor lives forever, and the emperor becomes a god. I only know that this realm is divided in this way. But what is the specific realm like? It's hard to say." Luo Xiaobai murmured, "The emperor lives forever, and the emperor becomes a god? Have we ever guessed that there is an era, called the Age of Gods?" Han Fei nodded. "Yes. And I can tell you clearly now that this era does exist." Luo Xiaobai was stunned for a while. "I don't think there is a problem with the Great Path. Obviously, there must be ancestors of human beings who created the 5 major professions. However, we know that the birth of the 5 major professions was born in battles. The 5 major professions are about a kind of cooperation and a kind of fighting method. This is very likely to mean that at the beginning, it is very likely that there were 5 pioneers of the human race who jointly created the 5 major professions in order to fight against certain forces. They even needed the talents cultivated by these 5 major professions to fight together. But it can't be said that those people didn't want to devour low-level cultivators." Luo Xiaobai nodded. "But, according to what you said, our human race has 36 Xiantian heavens. This is what we already know. The Yin-Yang heaven and the Waterwood heaven are only in the wilderness, and the other 36 Xiantian heavens may have more venerables and kings. The people there also have the 5 major professions, don't they? And the 36 Xiantian heavens, according to what you said, were only created by the earliest people who stayed behind. Then, in this vast sea, will there be other human beings surviving? If there are, will there be a large number of kings, emperors, and so on? If they all follow the same great path and attract each other, these people will probably have killed each other long ago, and a top expert will emerge." In the end, Luo Xiaobai said, "The great path is not destined to be won. At least I don't think there will be such a cruel situation of killing each other in the Pioneer Sea realm. After all, there are 2 kings in the Waterwood heaven alone. But in order to avoid the situation where someone really hunts the same great path, we can study another great path while cultivating this great path. In this way, after becoming a king, there will at least be another great path to take. Besides, we are still far from the peak of the venerable realm. By then, maybe you will have learned more information." Han Fei thought for a moment. "That's true. When I become stronger, I will naturally know more secrets. At that time, if some reapers want to deal with Luo Xiaobai and the others, I won't sit back and watch." No matter what, the speed of his cultivation was much faster than that of the others. At this time, there are still many things waiting for Han Fei to do. When the mess here in the Yin-Yang heaven is almost cleaned up, I still have to find At least, the probability of me becoming a king in the yin-yang heaven is still too low. If I want to have full confidence in becoming a king, I have to find first and go through reincarnation again. In this way, the river of time in the ideal palace can be unlocked and returned to the natural timeline. In this way, the eye of the heavenly path will disappear. Once the eye of the heavenly path disappears, it will be time for me to transcend the tribulation and become a king. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. My road to becoming a king is really not easy,